As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in schools shutting down all across the world. In this unprecedented situation, education has changed dramatically with the rise of e-learning. With the changing scenario, the teachers are expected to be equipped with knowledge in technology and be efficient in utilizing it. In light of this, St. Thomas Training College has decided to host a webinar on Techno dexterity for e-content generation. Let's start the session by invoking the presence of the Almighty. I call upon Ms. Gayatri Gopababat for the prayer song.
Ya Shubhavastha Ya Veeravardanda Mandakara Ya Shriya Padmasana Ya Brahmachyuta Shankara Prabhrutibhi Devai Sada Vandita Samam Padu Saraswati Bhagavati Visheshajadhyapaham.
Any program would be incomplete without a pillar of strength and constant source of motivation. Now, I invite our principal, Dr. Anla Chako, to give the welcome address. Anla ma'am?
Hello, Anla teacher.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
You didn't hear anything?
No, teacher.
No,
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, it was okay. Right now, okay. We'll start off. Okay, thank you. So, happy and cheerful morning to all of you. Can you hear?
Yes,
Can you hear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Respected resource person of the webinar, Dr. Velayudhan Nair T, Assistant Professor, Peet Memorial Training College, Mavellikara. Dr. Rajan Varghese, Secretary, Marthoma Church Educational Society. Ms. Seema Karthikeyan, convener of the webinar, teaching faculty and student friends. Though the pandemic COVID-19 has affected the educational system, personally, I consider it as a blessing in disguise because we as teachers and student teachers have become tech savvy within no time. And it has even transformed the centuries-old chalk and talk method. And as days pass by with no immediate solution to stop the outbreak of COVID, online classes or webinars are the only solution to ensure accessibility of learning, both for teachers and for students, and the response is overwhelming. To inaugurate today's webinar, we have with us the Secretary of Marthoma Church Educational Society, Dr. Rajan Verghese. He was a former HOD of Commerce and Tourism, Marivanas College. He also served as the Director of State Institute of Languages, Government of Kerala, Joint Secretary of Kerala State Council for Child Welfare, Member of Syndicate, Cochin University of Science and Technology, Member of Senate, University of Kerala. Dr. Rajan Verghese, sir, as the head of the management, as a teacher himself, has a willingness to listen and a mindset to understand the situation in the teacher education field, which is a rare quality as far as any head of the management is concerned. So extending to you, sir, a warm welcome on behalf of St. Thomas Training College. To lead today's webinar on Techno dexterity for e-content generation, we have with us Dr. Velayudhan Nair T, Assistant Professor, Peet Memorial Training College, Mavellikara. He is a first rank holder of MA English and a first rank holder of MEd, both from University of Kerala. He is also a recipient of the Best Paper Award and the Best Visual Presentation Award, both at the national and international conferences held in 2005, 2006, and 2009. He has proved his expertise as a convener of several seminars and webinars, especially the national webinar. You might have already joined, some of you might have already joined for that, Teach Big, which was held during the last week by Peet Memorial Training College. And he has published 2 books and several papers and served as the chief editor of few journals too. Though by hearing his name as Dr. Velayudhan Nair, we may consider him to be an old person, but actually he is Velu in the teacher education circle, the young, energetic and vibrant personality in all the tasks that he takes, all the tasks taken up by him. And he is also well known for his powerful voice and a melodious and for his melodious music too. With pleasure, extending a cordial welcome to you, sir, on behalf of St. Thomas Training College. Warm welcome to the convener of the webinar, Ms. Seema Karthikeyan, who has devoted her time and effort for planning, preparation, and organizing the event in a new platform. Acknowledging the suggestions put forth by all the teaching faculty during the different phases of the execution of the webinar and appreciating the presence of all of you today. A special word of welcome to the student coordinators, Robbins D. John and Jodi Lakshmi US, for the technical support rendered by them and all the other students of our college. Let this webinar be beneficial for all those who are participating in it. And let this be an interactive session. And if you have any kind of doubts in between, you can even write it in the chat box and ask questions related to that. And we'll even provide time for you to ask or clarify your doubts at the end of the session. And hope that this session will again be beneficial for all those who are watching and participating in it. Thank you once again. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm welcome. Now, let me invite a familiar face who's shown a constant presence and support in all the endeavors of our college. I invite Dr. Rajan Verghese, Secretary of Marthoma Church Education Society, for the inaugural address.
Dr. Anila, Dr. Velayudhan Nair, teachers, and dear students. I am very happy to be part of the inaugural session of the webinar organized by our college. As you all know, hitherto, human beings or man is considered as a social animal, in the sense that we live together, we grow together, and like that. But now, the pandemic situation caused by COVID-19 tells us to keep away and social distancing. They propagate social distancing. Now, this year, we were not able to organize classes in the schools due to the special situation. But from the beginning of the academic year, we have started classes we have started online classes. Anyway, I cannot advocate that online classes are better than direct teaching or replace direct teaching. Because many things we learn while in the class, while we mingle with the students and teachers, that we will not get in a virtual class. So there is virtual distance in the sense that when we teach through electronic media, we lack certain things. So we have to think how to solve this problem. That's a great challenge as far as the present day teachers and students are concerned. Now, designing and development of digital resources for teaching and learning in the current situation is very relevant. Though we conduct online classes, digitizing and storing the content is also a part of e-learning. We need to formalize how to generate e-content, and there are number of tools to create e-content. This Techno dexterity seminar, organized by our college, I think will equip you to use such tools with hand-on experiment that enable to develop the skill for content generation. With these few words, I take this opportunity to inaugurate the webinar and wish you all the best and all a good experience throughout this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are pleased to have Dr. Velayudhan Nair T, Assistant Professor of Peet Memorial Training College, Mavellikara, to enlighten us on the topic Techno dexterity for e-content generation. I invite you, sir, to lead the session.
Velu sir? Velu sir? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you, Vanshida. And good morning, everyone. Well, it feels very ironic that I am going to be talking about technology for the next couple of hours, and my laptop has run into trouble. I haven't been having my laptop with me for the last couple of weeks. So what I was planning to do is I'd be presenting from my desktop, but I thought it's only very reasonable that I log in from my mobile at least for the couple of first minutes so that you could get to see the person who is speaking to you. So that's why I'm here. Again, like it feels very strange that I'm a person who had been living in Trivandrum for the last 40 plus years. I've taught at a training college in Trivandrum for around 9 years before I moved over to the college where I'm working now. I've been part of the Viva board, examination board for the last 12-15 years. But I've never really had an opportunity to visit St. Thomas Training College, which I believe is one of the best teacher education institutions in Trivandrum district. And this is the first time that I get to be on a platform at St. Thomas Training College, though an online platform. I feel honored to be here. And thank you so much, Emily teacher, for having invited me over. And of course, and there are lots of colleagues there whom I have known from close quarters, Nisha teacher, Asha teacher, Vidya teacher, Seema teacher, whom I have got to meet yesterday. Lots of people. So it feels wonderful to be with them and also to interact with them and also to interact with you for the next couple of hours. So on that note, I think I'll switch over to my presentation on the desktop. So I'll be back on my mobile maybe after the presentation, after a couple of hours, when we are having the discussion as the teacher was saying. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right, right. All right. So I was just taking a look at the title of this webinar, Techno, Dexterity for the E-Content Generation, which I thought was an amazing title, really. But which is also kind of scary, if you ask me. For one, I should admit rather, that I'm far from achieving dexterity when it comes to technology, nimbleness, skillfulness when it comes to technology. I probably am one of those persons who have just about started off, and I'm very busy at the moment, exploring the potentials that technology has to offer me as a teacher. The second part of it, in fact, referring to the e-content generation, is even scarier. From a lecturer's point of view, I mean, because it means that I would probably be talking to a bunch of digital natives, who are as familiar with technology as the back of their palms. So that said, I thought I should probably scale down the scope of my talk. And that's why I thought I'd speak today to you on the what, why, and how of e-content development. I thought we should start off by taking a look at the focal points that need to be discussed today. So our discussion for the day would start off with a look at what technology has really been up to, especially in the field of education, what has been happening, and what is the kind of impact that it has been having on the field of education. We've been hearing a lot about e-learning, but we'll also take a look at, some real hardcore facts and figures that would help us build our conviction in e-learning a little bit further. We'll also take a look at OLPs, online learning platforms. You should already be familiar with what e-content is, but we'll further take a look at what e-content is, what are the types of e-content, and what are the e-content development models that we should be familiar with, the phases, the steps that need to be followed while developing e-content, and the tools that could be used for e-content development. We'll take a look at some of the samples and some very popular software that could be used in e-content development. There's also this very vital question as how much of e-content do we actually need? Is there something called an excess of e-content? And then probably for the last 15 minutes, we'll have some sort of a discussion. So I should probably wind this up in 1 hour and 45 minutes. And then if time permits, we'll have a discussion for about 15 minutes. So that's what we are planning to do today. And before we start off, it's always better to clearly sort of delineate, between what you should expect of this discussion and what you should probably not. That way, a lot of misconceptions regarding what is about to follow could be cleared. So here is what you should expect. We can expect a discussion on e-content, the diverse and unconventional types of e-content probably, because we usually tend to focus on some very conventional types of e-content. So we could probably take a look at some of the alternatives that we have, steps in e-content development, of course, kinds of e-content development software, examples of e-content development software. How do we deal with copyright issues, if at all we have to deal with copyright issues when we are developing e-content? And what do we do with all the e-content that we have developed? Where do you actually upload all these things? How do you actually put, these e-content, the developed e-content, into a presentable format? So these are things that we can expect in the course of this 1 hour, 45 minutes discussion. But what we should probably not expect is a hands-on experience on the software use, because unfortunately, I think that doesn't fall into the scope of a webinar as this that lasts for a couple of hours. Probably we should think of a workshop that extends over a couple of days or probably over a week, when you could actually see all the demonstrations, how these things work, and how you could actually edit things, graphics, videos, audios, and all that stuff. But that actually requires a lot of time. And that is probably something not to be expected in the course of this very short span of time. So there's this one question that we have all been concerned about. What has technology been up to? On hindsight, though I think probably I should have rephrased this question. I should have been asking you, what has technology not been up to? What has technology not been doing? And when you're talking about technology, you will often find people on either ends of the spectrum. On the one end, you will have people who actually dream of spending the rest of their lives online, where they really do not have to deal with all these people offline on a day-to-day basis. So that is at one end. And on the other end, you have people who say that they will not be impressed with technology unless and until, technology develops the ability to sort of download actual burgers and pizzas off the internet. So you have people on either ends of the spectrum. And then there are people like normal people like you and me probably, who are fascinated with what technology has been kind of offering us, but who are slightly unnerved and slightly scared about what we do not really know about it, but who are actually determined to make the maximum use of it. However, the bottom line is technology has had a massive influence on almost all realms of life, especially in the last couple of decades. And in particular, in the field of education, there has been a revolution of sorts thanks to technology. And probably when it comes to education, we should be talking about accessibility first, because the breaking down of geographical barriers is what we are always talking about when we are talking of technology. I'm not sure where you're actually hosting this webinar. I'm not sure if it's in the teacher's principal's room or Anisha teacher's home, or some of the student coordinators has actually convened the meeting in their confines. What I am really sure about is, I'm at least a couple of maybe 5 to 6 kilometers away from St. Thomas Training College, and I'm in a containment zone in the confines of my home, very comfortably sitting in my study room talking to you. So there's no more sort of geographical barriers when it comes to, interactions that are happening between human beings. And that is thanks to technology, and no more physical presence is needed in classrooms, teachers and students sitting together and being in the same environment at the same time. That is not required anymore. An instant and convenient communication happens over great distances, actually, just at the click of a button. So accessibility has increased multifold as a result of technology. So that's the first thing that we should probably be thinking about. And along with accessibility comes something called flexibility as well. You have these student communities that have quite varied demands these days. In fact, some of them are working, some of them have familial pressure, and this has sort of stopped students from attending classes at specific times. And this provides opportunities for such students to attend courses. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to course designs, and course materials are made available online, and work could be completed at their own paces. Students could work at their own pace as and when their schedule permits, and so on and so forth. So self-pacing is actually the key word to flexibility, and it has sort of opened the doors for people who are otherwise unable to attend or pursue studies or schools or colleges, and parents of very young children, for instance, or people who are working full-time, and people who are pursuing another career maybe, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of flexibility that has come in as a result of technology. And this is very important, differing interactions between teachers and students, and this is something that we are all going to. This is a topic of intense debate as well, as online educational environments have brought about a radical shift in teacher-student relationships. See, it has been about 4 months now since I've seen my second year B.Ed students. And some of them keep on telling me that they really miss the classrooms, they really miss the classes at college, and they really miss the interactions that we have been having in the classrooms, and so on and so forth. Because I really don't get to see their faces when they're telling me this. But jokes apart, there are people who claim that, these changes are for the good. There's a lot of change when it comes to interaction between teachers and students, where they really don't have to sort of sit face to face. Some people believe that all this is for the good, while there are others who believe that, in online learning environments as these, as Dr. Rajan Varghese has been saying in his inaugural speech, he is saying that, the vital human element has actually gone missing. So there are people who actually miss that human vital element, and who feel that, online learning environments could never probably be a substitute for face-to-face interactions that actually take place in classrooms. So lots of differences in interactions between teachers and students. Then, of course, there is the advent of online testing, and now this is hugely beneficial, generally considered hugely beneficial for a whole lot of reasons. Now, you must have been, conducting online tests here in St. Thomas Training College as well. And you would have seen for yourself, how, transparent and objective the whole process of online testing is. I mean, if a machine is grading the test, and if a machine is automatically correcting the right and the wrong answers, it is impossible. It is impossible, to show any signs of bias. So you can't just blame the teacher anymore for having been partial, or for having shown any bias or anything like that. So additionally, online testing can be an excellent solution for people who actually suffer from test anxiety. I mean, there are lots of people who suffer from test anxiety, and test anxiety continues to be a reality even for college students. And, some people are distressed by taking tests in a room along with a group of other people. So online testing is a huge boon for people like that. And finally, it's also much better when students are having very busy schedules. It's always assumed that generally teachers have busy schedules, but with students pursuing multiple courses online, they can have very busy schedules as well. So, they might be provided opportunities to opt for an online test at their own time and, convenience. So that is, of course, considered to be a huge benefit. Then there is an improved ability to meet special needs as a result of technology. Earlier in classrooms, we know that every student had the same experience. This was the same teacher standing before them day after day, week after week, month after month, and the same content was being delivered to them, in exactly the same manner. Usually teachers used to have these written notes with them that would last for years and years. So this was the same pattern that was being followed. And, regardless of the ability of the students or the needs of the students, the problem was some students could actually work very well in these conditions, whereas some others had what would you call unmet needs, unfulfilled needs. So technology helps overcome these conditions. And students with especially impairments, like when it comes to speech impairments or hearing impairments or visual impairments, students who are homebound, probably due to, movement limitations and so on and so forth, can make use of assistive technologies that have been put forward by technology in the field of education. So this has brought about a massive change in education as a result of, technology interventions. We also need to talk about the availability of online learning content, like earlier again, like learning used to take place exclusively in the classroom setting, and educational tools were usually books, textbooks, notebooks, and so on and so forth, or, there would be at least a few educational videos that would be shown in the educational technology labs. So that is how far it would go. But these days, what has happened is, the internet has come in and it has changed education by allowing anybody to share any kinds of knowledge, with the rest of the world. I mean, like, you could publish an educational blog post. It is out there for all to see. You could prepare an ebook. You could, go live on live stream on YouTube, and, you could be there on YouTube. You could create a video and upload it onto a site called Vimeo, or, you could do multiple things online, and online learning content is all over the place. In fact, I would say, there's an excess of it. Wherever you do a Google search, you come up with tons of e-content, like online learning content that is available at your disposal, and it becomes very difficult for a person after a while to sift through all this e-content and decide what is probably good for him or not. So that is the kind of e-content that is available online. See, I have been wanting to learn Spanish for a very, very long time. So I actually searched around for, a personal tutor in Trivandrum, and I've been doing this probably for the last 7-8 years. I actually found a couple of people, but somehow I couldn't, match my schedules with theirs. So I just left it at that. But just a couple of weeks back, after the lockdown and all started, and I was sort of hunting around for, probably doing a couple of courses online. So just a couple of weeks back, I signed up for an online course in Spanish on Udemy, and I decided to give it a go. And it's a wonderful course that lasts for about 4 to 5 weeks that teaches me the basics of Spanish, and the first batch of learning materials have already been downloaded onto my desktop. So that's how easy, it is to go online and learn something new these days. There's plenty of online learning content that's available out there. And of course, we should talk about interactivity, and there is a greater emphasis on interactivity. Again, this is a debatable topic. There are people who ask, if a computer can interact better than a human being, or, if the interactions between a computer and a human being can be, at a slightly higher personal level than the interaction that takes place between two human beings. Now, much of our traditional educational models actually focuses, unfortunately, on this idea of passivity, where students just sit back, relaxed on their benches, and, and they'll just be listening to teacher talk, or they are asked to read a few words on the page of a textbook, and so on and so forth. This is a conventional model that we have been following for a very, very long time. And this concept actually, the problem rather of this concept is that it leaves very little room for interactivity and engagement. We believe that there is a lot of interactivity that's happening, the teachers occasionally asking a question, or, a quiz that is being handed over, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, the interactivity is much lesser than the kind of interactivity that is offered by technology. Because technology, on the other hand, tends to be more interactive, believe it or not. I mean, students can engage directly with interactive models, they can interact with videos, they can navigate websites, they can browse the internet for research, and they can do tons more online. For example, imagine the difference between, trying to memorize the list of every country, in an ebook, from a textbook, for instance, versus an interactive tool that you would find online, where you're actually required to click on the map of a country, and up comes a pop-up which shows the name of the country and all the details. So that's how interactive things could be online, and they help sort of spark a broader interest in students as well. That happens.
And there is a heightened ability to keep up with the current events thanks to technology. Now, this is one small graphic that I have put up with that has been, created by Laurel Lewis, and this is updated almost every year. And this is the graphic that has come up with in 2020, and though we have been having a disastrous year so far, there are lots of things happening online, and that is something that we cannot turn our eyes away from. Let's say that the only teaching tools the teacher had are the textbooks, most of which contain information, usually in the classrooms. That is what happens, and most of these textbooks contain information that are at least a couple of years old, because we know how long it takes for a textbook, to actually reach the hands of the students and the teachers. So that may not have been a problem in the past, but today the problem is that the world is moving much faster than ever thanks to technology, and it allows teachers, not just students, it allows teachers as well to keep up to date with the current events. And there is lots and lots of things that are actually happening on the internet every 60 seconds. If you take a look at this graphic, you see that $1.1 million is spent online every 60 seconds. 59 million messages are sent on WhatsApp and Facebook, and the 1.6 million swipes on Tinder happening, 1,400 downloads on TikTok happening every 60 seconds, and so much, and 1.3 million people logging into Facebook, and 4.7 million videos viewed on YouTube every 60 seconds. I mean, these are like huge figures, unimaginable figures, with so many people going online and so much of material being made available online, it's absolutely possible for people to keep themselves up to date every second online, So there's a heightened ability to keep up with the current events. And then there is adaptability and personalization. Now, this is again a very important aspect of education as such, because educational spaces, in fact, classrooms maybe, or, virtual spaces even, are becoming increasingly aware of the fact that what helps one student might not be actually useful for another one. This is individualization or individual abilities, as we call it in psychology, or individual differences, as we call it in psychology. And what helps one student learn maybe virtually, it might be useless to somebody else. And what makes no sense to one student may be the only thing that actually makes sense to someone else. So everyone's brain works differently. We've been talking about, left brains and right brains, and everyone has a unique learning style. And yet for many years, what has happened is all the students read from the same textbook, and all the students read from the same teacher. They have been interacting with the same person, and this has been going on. So students, in fact, when the intervention of technology, what has happened is they can benefit from having a range of tools and learning technologies, and these are all available at their fingertips. So if one solution doesn't work for a student, he always has the option to try out another one, another one that might work. And if that doesn't work, another one, and so on and so forth. So technology takes into account these two vital aspects of very effective learning, which is adaptability to changing needs and personalization. And there is a shifting classroom dynamics. Now, with the arrival and popularization, rather, of internet technology, the dynamics in the classrooms, particularly college classrooms, is experiencing a shift, where the professor may once have been the sole source of knowledge. Right now I'm talking to you, but that doesn't really necessarily mean that, that you're all probably listening to me per se. Probably you could be doing a search of yourselves, online, and trying to see for yourself if what I'm saying is right or wrong and all that. All these options are there for teachers and students. So earlier, this used to be not the case, and the professor was the sole source of knowledge. The internet has changed all this. And what has happened is, all information is available online. So Earlier, students used to spend lots of time listening to lectures, but what they're doing right now is they're hunting around a lot of information while they're home, and in classrooms, what they're doing rather is not just listening to lectures, but they're actually having discussions and debates as to what they have found out for themselves, rather than not from the mouth of the teachers. They have found out a lot of things by themselves. So they're having discussions and debates on this, and they're spending lots of time, discovering new concepts and ideas and discussing about these ideas and the implications of these ideas and so on and so forth. And in this type of classroom, the teacher has sort of, I wouldn't say he has shifted to the background, rather the roles of the teacher have been changing. We have been talking about the changing roles of the teacher, even otherwise, and now he's more of a moderator. He is what you would call a mentor, rather than, somebody who would, probably just stand before a class and merely give a lecture. And the same model actually applies to schools as well. And last but certainly not the least, we need to prepare students for a technology-based world. See, as Anna teacher was saying in the introductory, in the welcome speech, the COVID pandemic is, in fact, it's just one of the major reasons. I mean, it's just a cause, actually, it is something that has actually prompted us, forced us to shift us onto the online mode, and lots of things have changed. And how many of us would have probably imagined last year that we would be teaching via Google Classrooms, and we would be submitting assignments in a Google Classroom, and we'd be having a meeting like this, a webinar like this on Google Meet. I mean, like, personally, I have been familiar with Google tools probably since a couple of years, but I've never actually used a Google Meet until, say, probably 5 months back. I mean, this is a fact. I mean, you would probably have given it a test, or you would have probably taken a look at how the thing works, but otherwise, you would have probably never actually used it for a practical purpose. And this is something that has actually happened, and we have all become techno savvy, overnight. We have all become people who have sort of who log into your mobiles in the early mornings, and we are logging into Google Classrooms and Google Meets, and we are having lectures online and whatnot. So books and face-to-face lectures probably will become a thing of the past. Try hard as we may, to deny this, but probably this is going to be a fact that we are going to be faced with in the future. And these have, in fact, like, books and face-to-face lectures have actually dominated, like, intellectual spaces and academic spaces for a long time, but it's time for them to slightly move over and, for online spaces to take over the places that they have been occupying for a long time. And I'm sure, like, there are lots of people who will, like, feel scandalized if I suggest that online classrooms are going to take over. No, that's probably not going to happen, of course. But the sudden inclusion of video presentations, iPads, there are ebooks and podcasts and all these things happening, and this is a whole lot of change happening, and it's slightly difficult for us to adapt to all these changes. But what is surprising is, in the course of the last couple of months, we have adapted to all these in much faster than we thought probably we would. So when students actually leave high school and when they leave college to find a job, and these jobs will almost certainly involve technologies of some kind. That is something that we cannot turn our faces away from. And even if they don't, internet technology will, it will make sure that they need to make use of internet technology in some way or the other in their personal lives as well. So the inclusion of these technologies into the classroom is about preparing students as well for a world that will be full of these technologies. I mean, like, they are going to live in this world that will be full of these technologies, and the technology is they're just not just there to supplement the learning. It's there so that students will learn to use them and integrate all these technologies into their very lives. So this is how technology has been creating an impact, not just on the field of education, but, all over our lives. Moving on, we'll take a look at, what e-learning is. And as we all know, this is a term that has been coined by Elliot Massey in 1999. And very simply stated, it is learning conducted via electronic media, typically on the internet. And there has been, in fact, like a lot of techno transformation that has been happening via e-learning. Now, though e-learning is a term that has been coined like a couple of decades back, 1999, like seems so far away now, almost 20 years back, but the modes of e-learning actually have changed over the years. Earlier, like just as the desktops have turned over into laptops and tablets and iPads and all these stuff, there have been lots of changes in technology, and the e-learning modes also have changed over the years. So probably like we have moved to an ultra modern mode of e-learning in 2020, which is far, far away from the kind of e-learning that Elliot Massey had in mind in 1999. Now, there is a lot of techno transformation that is happening via e-learning, and we really need to discuss a few of these before we move on to what e-learning is and how e-content actually contributes to e-learning and all that. So a lot of techno transformation has been happening via e-learning, and these are facts that we have probably already taken a look at, but which we nevertheless need to go through once again rather quickly this time. And it's now possible to complete a college degree without even stepping into a classroom. I hope you're aware of that. In the past few years, like online campuses have spawned like with a great veracity, lots of online campuses spawning all over the internet, some of which are, very genuine and authentic, and which have been offering like absolutely fantastic courses that you could finish off online, and some of which have been, not so authentic and genuine. So they are typically much more affordable than, kind of traditional universities. The students do not really need to travel to classes or pay for on-campus housing or, tuition fees. I mean, like there are other fees, like, of course, that are being demanded by online classes and online universities. But of course, there are also plenty of online courses that are being offered free of cost. So online classrooms have actually become the order of the day. Chalkboards, no more. Again, I think this was something that was referred to by a teacher in a welcome speech, and that they've almost disappeared from the classroom. And sometimes, like, you might have a green board somewhere, but again, like, green boards have been sort of substituted by smart boards, which have become interactive and, touchscreen enabled and all these. And now we are moving on to marker boards even. So, like, chalkboards have become a thing of the past. No more chalkboards. And less notes. We don't have these tiny notes that have been floating around in the classrooms. We still remember, most of my colleagues would remember, being absent in a class for one day and then carrying back all the notebooks back home, so that all those notes could be scribbled down before handing over the notebook to the friend the next day. That doesn't happen anymore. In fact, like what I've been hearing is we have been hearing rumors that ever since, the online classes have started in Kerala, WhatsApp galleries of parents have become infested with classroom notes, pictures and notes, being transferred over WhatsApp and Telegram and all that. So lots of, graphical notes these days rather than actual textual notes being transferred, less notes. And then there's web-based research. I mean, searching for a particular piece of information has never been probably easier. I mean, people actually, hesitate going to an actual research library these days. It can be very frustrating since it is very time-consuming, it is exhausting. And for people like me, it causes a dust allergy as well if you dust through old books. So, like, rather what you would do is, you just, Google a term and, for students, in fact, are familiar with the moment they're given an assignment, the first thing that they do is, go online and do the term search on Google and come up with all sorts of resources that they can come about with. But all said and done, I should say that, none of this actually gives you the pleasure that you actually get by having a book in your hands and leafing through the pages and, smelling the book despite the allergies. Some books really smell good. So that is also there. But of course, like, so hunting for a particular piece of information is very easy. One click is enough to find what you need. And in that way, the process of researching has actually sped up, and it leaves, since you're spending much time hunting for information, you can spending less time hunting for information. You can spend all the time, in learning itself. So a lot of time is saved actually, and all this time could be actually used in learning. So that is there, web-based research. And there is more effective communication. Communication is 1,000,000 times faster and easier than it was, say, maybe 10 years ago. Like students, teachers, parents, they have no excuse of not to be in contact with each other regularly these days because, like with all these technical gadgets and smartphones and all, it's very difficult to sort of come up with an excuse of not being in touch. So email communications might be there. There might be text messaging and phone calls and much more. The ability never to lose touch has actually been garnered by humans. So these days, if we say that if someone is not responding to you, it is more a matter of priorities than, of not having time or not having the what do you say, the expertise or, the technical gadgets or whatever. So communication has become much more much easier. And there is e-books. And while many students report that, some students actually still have a preference for textbooks. As I told you earlier, there's always this nice feeling that you have when you actually have a book in your hands and when you're leafing through the pages of a book. That is definitely there. But with changing educational technologies, what has happened is ebooks have opened a whole new world of possibilities for academics. And see, what happens is like most people see ebooks as simply a virtual form of traditional books, but ebooks are actually much more than that. For instance, multimedia can be inserted into a PDF book, and lots of opportunities are there. And furthermore, it allows students to limit the number of books that they have actually to carry on to a school. Gone are those days when you'll have to carry a load of books on your backpack and with your almost having a hump and walking to the school. All those days are gone now, and you have all these ebooks and all coming up with. And I'm sure like many students in St. Thomas Colleges and some of my colleagues in St. Thomas College might already have a membership in Amazon Kindle, and and you would have enabled Kindle in your smartphones and tablets so that you can sort of leaf through ebooks. It is as simple as that. So ebooks are available, and then there are iPads and tablets and digital simulations which allow teachers to sort of simplify complicated concepts. There are some concepts, especially in science and all, are quite difficult to explain the traditional methods. And introducing concepts such as say like how molecules react with each other, or how two particular chemicals are mixed together. What is the color change that happens when these two things are mixed together? And these things are like, it's very difficult to explain outside a typical lab setting. So virtual labs, in fact, and simulations help students to conduct experiments, without the risks that are associated with actual lab work. So it is much more efficient, for universities as well, and for colleges, this is much more efficient. And there is better assessment, and that is something that we have already discussed. And we also need to talk about gamification before we move on to e-content. And while like we have been talking, we have been like asking our kids and children to keep off video games. We have been asking them not to play PUBG and all that. And while video games can be used for entertainment, like mostly they are used for entertainment, but recently this gamification concept has in fact, created a revolution in the field of education itself. And video games they've been proven to be very powerful educational tools which can be designed to mimic, real life problems and gauge and assess how students react to real life situations. So not only are video games introducing a whole new way of working, but they also allow students to become problem solvers. So there's absolutely no telling what the phase of education will look like, in the next few years. But technology is certain to become more and more important in classrooms, and it probably change the lives and the lives of both the students and the teachers for the better. So all said and done, as I said, we have been talking a lot about e-learning. We have been hearing lots about e-learning, but I've come up with a compilation of 7 basic facts that should probably, that should further, convince us a little bit further regarding how important e-learning is going to be in the world of the future. So this is the first fact that I want you to take a look at. And E-learning, basically, it's not about the schools and colleges. This might even, be concerned about learning that happens in organizations, in working organizations, for instance, learning that is offered to employees and so on. So if you see a term called employee here, you can very easily substitute it with student in our context, and that is how it works. So this is the first fact, and which states that learning through e-learning typically requires 40 to 60% less student time than learning the same material in a traditional classroom setting. Now, this is probably very interesting in that lots of student time is saved. Like, this again has a direct relation to something that we have already discussed, earlier, in that, students really do not have to go to classrooms. Students could be in the very confines of their homes, and they could be learning from their homes. So lots and lots of time is saved when it comes to e-learning. So this is actually based on a study that has been done in 2020, and I have the reference coming up towards the end. The second fact is that, this is very surprising, actually. I thought, probably it's always better if you have a teacher standing in front of you and explaining things to you, and that is how you remember things better. But seems not that way, because this study shows that e-learning increases retention rates, that is memory rates, to 25 to 60% rise in retention rates, while retention rates of face-to-face training is very low, 8 to 10%. So when you actually see a teacher, you don't remember much of what is being said. You probably remember much about the teacher, rather, but you probably don't remember much about what the teacher said. But when it comes to e-learning, it's different. You remember 25 to 60% of what has been learned online. So that is, again, a very positive fact when it comes to e-learning. Fact 3. With e-learning, participants learn nearly 5 times more material without increasing the time spent in training. So this time spent is exactly the same, like 1 hour spent in online learning and 1 hour spent in offline learning. But the amount of learning that has been done is actually 5 times. So that is, in fact, a huge figure, if you ask me. So when it comes to productivity, e-learning seems to be far, far ahead than, very normal traditional kind of learning. Fact 4 is, every rupee that is invested in online training results in $30 of productivity. So the 30 times. So you invest 1 rupee in e-learning, you get 30 rupees back in some form or the other. Productivity of students, rather, or their employability, or their joy, their job potentials, and so on and so forth. So productivity, like when it comes to economic productivity, also e-learning is far, far ahead. And companies that use e-learning technology achieve 18% boost in employee engagement. Now, engagement, whether it's employee engagement or student engagement, that is very important. Like, we are talking about accountability as well here, being responsible for what you're learning, taking responsibility for what you're learning or what you're studying. And it's just similar, when it comes to student engagement as well, how much you're actually engaged in what you're learning, and how much interesting do you find it, and how much do you actually want to carry on with what you're learning? So 18% boost in that. And then more than 41.7% of global Fortune companies already use some form of technology to train their employees. Now, this has become a sort of a world norm, if you ask me. Almost every company that has some credibility to it has been using e-learning in some form or the other. And 72% of organizations believe that e-learning helps them increase their competitive edge by giving them the opportunity to keep up with the changes. Competitive edge, so this is exactly, if you take into consideration the different online platforms that you have. We'll be taking a look at some online learning platforms in the coming slides. When you sort of compare them across, you see that, there's a competitive edge to each of these online learning platforms. And when you sort of experiment with each of these learning platforms, you realize that why some of them are really good and why some of them are not, even across e-learning. So that is there. That is the fourth fact. Fact 5, since the year 2000, the growth of the e-learning industry has been 900%. So we had referred earlier that the term e-learning itself was coined in 1999, and ever since 2000, couple of decades later, 900% is not a very small figure, as we know, and this has been like a tremendous. In fact, the e-learning industry happens to be one of the the most booming technological industries online. Education is a major field in which lots and lots of work has been going on, and lots of contributions have been coming up. And fact 6 is 42% of companies say that e-learning has led to increase in revenue as well, especially when it comes to employee training and so on and so forth. Productivity has increased and total revenue of the companies itself have increased. That is fact 6. And the last one, fact 7 is, this is very interesting actually. Britain's Open University study found that producing and providing e-learning courses consumes an average of 90% less energy. Now we know that is absolutely a fact, 90% less energy. I was just thinking, if I spent and I'm just sitting very comfortably in my armchair here in my room, and I'm talking to you, and I'm probably the most comfortable person on earth right now. But if I was actually supposed to deliver the same lecture behind a podium on at St. Thomas Training College in an auditorium, standing right before you, I don't know, probably I would have been a little bit more stressed out, 50% of lesser energy would have been drained out probably. So this is more comfortable, and you're all sitting in your confines, and some of you might be lying down actually. I have this faint suspicion that some of you might be actually lying down, or some of you might be cutting vegetables listening to my lecture. In fact, one of my students actually confessed that she has been very busy cutting vegetables for her curry while she was listening to my lecture online. So people might be doing different things, but they have their headphones plugged on, which is all that matters, and they've been listening to me, but less energy, definitely, and 85% fewer carbon dioxide emissions per student than face-to-face training. Seems very funny, actually, but that is also a fact. And all this has been cooked up from a study that has been conducted by a website called shiftelearning.com. And this is a very recent study that has come up with they've come up with in 2020. So these are a few facts and figures that we need to that we need to have before us that should probably convince us to invest more time and energy in e-learning. Now, talking of e-learning brings me on to a very important, area of e-content development called online learning platforms. Because we have been talking about e-content, you might have attended several webinars on e-content even, and e-content development and so on and so forth. But where do we actually get to see all this e-content in action? Normally what we do is, you have these online learning platforms. A small definition has been given here, an integrated set of interactive online services that provide trainers, learners, and others involved in education with information, tools, and resources to support and enhance education delivery and management. Now, that sounds like a high-sounding definition. It's too complicated, I should admit. But very basically state, if you're looking for a very basic definition of an online platform, it's just a very simple website that offers you, different learning courses. A place where you could just have a very simple login ID and a password, and you could just log in as a student or a teacher maybe, and you could conduct a course, or you can receive a course, you can undergo a training program, or so on and so forth. So any simple online website that offers you all these opportunities is an online learning platform. And it is on these online learning platforms that you get to see all this e-content that you have developed in action. So you might be familiar with all these online learning platforms, but the only thing is, probably you have never considered them as OLPs. You might be familiar with these websites, but you have never thought of it as an OLP. So let's take a look at some of the very common online learning platforms where you get to see all this e-content in action. So the first and most popular online platform, especially in the Indian context, is probably Swayam. And Swayam is an online platform that you should all be familiar with, which is available at swayam.gov.in. And it is an acronym, as we all know. Swayam is an acronym that stands for Study Webs of Active Learning for Young Aspiring Minds. And it is a massive online open online course platform, which is called a MOOC, as you know. Now MOOCs are again like, I don't know if you've already learned about MOOCs in your previous semester in technology, or if you're about to learn it in this semester, I'm not really sure. But MOOCs are massive open online courses, and this SWAYAM has been developed by the Indian government, and it is considered to be the biggest Indian open online course platform. Now, it's an initiative that has been launched by the Ministry of Human Resource Development and the Government of India, of course, and this has been developed under the Digital India platform. And it is lots and lots of web courses are available on this platform, and it covers like high school courses, skill sector courses, advanced educational courses, and so on and so forth. So as you can see here, you can see 500 plus courses are open for enrollment. And in fact, I was trying to register for a course on e-content the other day on SWAYAM, and it's already full. So I'll have to wait until that course is done, and until the next course starts. So this SWAYAM is in fact a wonderful example of an online learning platform. So and this is one online learning platform that I believe all of you are familiar with. Now, moving away from India, we have lots and lots of online platforms that have been working wonderfully well, and one of my personal favorites happens to be Udemy. And udemy.com, which is available at udemy.com. And this is a website that I have been talking to you about earlier, where I have actually registered myself as a student for a course in Spanish. And is, you can see online courses happening at the same time. You can imagine any topic that you want to learn, and it's there on Udemy. And lots of people, live instruction is happening there, offline instructions are happening there. So absolutely a wide range of technological opportunities await you at Udemy. And it's in fact a website that's about 10 years old. I believe I was discovered sometime around in 2010, and this actually aims not just students alone. You could be a middle-aged adult like me who is actually waiting to pursue a new course. You need not necessarily be a student alone. So for all of us, for all our interests, there's something happening there in Udemy. There's something that Udemy has to offer. So this is a platform that has almost 50 million students from and almost like 60,000 instructors from across the world offering courses. It's a huge thing happening there in Udemy. So this is one course. This is one website that you need to explore. If you haven't really explored it, Udemy. And another different universities. It works with different universities, and very reputed universities like the University of Amsterdam or the University of Leeds and so on and so forth. And it offers certificate courses, online courses, certifications, degrees, different subjects, so whether it's engineering or mathematics or business studies or computer science, humanities, medicine, biology or whatever. I mean, like, think of any subject, you have a course there on Coursera. The only one thing is most of these courses are done for free as well. Like, you don't have to sort of pay for courses online on Coursera, but of course, like, if you need to have a degree certificate as such, you might have to pay. So like I was talking about Udemy earlier, but I had to pay for the course. I paid around like 500 rupees for the course on Spanish. So it depends. Like, some courses are offered for free, some courses are not offered for free. Like, some courses are paid. So if you need to have a certificate in Coursera, you need to pay. Otherwise, you can do lots of, if you just need to have some training, you could just enroll in Coursera and you could do a course on Coursera. Then you also need to be familiar with Skillshare. Skillshare is again like one wonderful website where you could sort of, as the name itself suggests, you could brush up on your skills further, you could enhance your skills further. Unfortunately, I believe from what I've understood, Skillshare, does not offer courses which are accredited. I mean, like, they do have courses that are connected with universities, but most of their courses are not accredited. But they're available for subscription and all. So you can just enroll for a course on Skillshare and you could sort of brush up your expertise, or you can work upon your skills and so on and so forth. The majority of the courses in Skillshare actually focus on interaction rather than lecturing, interactive videos and all that. So lots of the primary goal actually of courses on Skillshare is, you need to complete a project first, and then you could work on your skills further. You need to complete a project, you need to submit it, and so on. And so, it's almost absolutely interactive. The whole interactive content has been developed in such a way, that your skills are perfectly honed up. So Skillshare is a wonderful, wonderful website, an online platform that you could probably explore. And the last one that I wanted to talk to you about was futurelearn.com, which is again another website that you could probably explore if you want to find out, the different kinds of e-content that are being actually used by experts and course developers. And FutureLearn is again a digital education platform. This is again not like a comparatively a new website that's probably 7 or 8 years old, and it is lots of MOOCs again, massive open online courses are being offered by FutureLearn, and plenty of international partners, and especially from the UK, they have joined in FutureLearn, and even non-university partners have contributed. So FutureLearn is again one platform, one online platform, learning platform that you should explore if you need to sort of take a look at the e-content. Now, the major reason that I have been talking about these online platforms is that the one major reason that I've been talking about these online, because these are actual sites where that offer demonstrations as to how e-content actually works in an academic context, where you can actually go and find out for yourself how e-content has been offered by course learners. What are the different kinds of e-contents that have been offered, and so on and so forth, and how it is that they have all these different kinds of e-content have been integrated together inside a course, and how they have been contributing to online learning, and so on and so forth. So if you're familiar with any of these online learning platforms, you're already familiar with e-content. That is what I would say in one form or the other, which brings us to the definition of probably the most important term of the day, e-content. Now, I have been told by Seema teacher that we'd have a short break at 11 o'clock. So probably because I am moving over to e-content now. So if we can have that break right now, that would be better, because I don't want to start on e-content and then break it. So would that be okay? Anla teacher, Seema teacher, is somebody around?
Okay, sir. Okay. On to Anjita.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just stop my presentation 1 second.
Okay. Anjita,
Yes, ma'am.
sir has taken a break now.
Due to the lockdown, it's been months since we came to college and met one another. So I'm pretty sure everyone is missing the college. Let's go down the memory lane and live the moments again. Yes, so that was a good experience to have a glimpse of college life. A reminder to you all, the link to the feedback form will be provided at the end of the session. I request you all to stay till the end to fill the form and receive the e-certificate. Also, there will be a photo session towards the end of the session. Kindly ensure that your camera is turned on. So, before we move on to the continuation of the class, so sir, Allah ma'am had mentioned in the welcome address that you have a melodious voice. So, would you sing a song before continuing with the session? Sir?
Anjita, should I finish off the lecture first and then sing, or sing and continue with the lecture?
As you wish, sir. Actually.
Okay, what we'll do is, I do promise to sing a song, but I'll just finish off the lecture first, and then probably,
okay.
I can sing at leisure then. Okay, is that fine?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks so much for the wonderful presentation, by the way. Yeah, it feels so good actually to see all of you standing together, maskless faces, unmasked, rather, people standing together. And oh my God, this seems to be made so far away, hold up in our own homes, and with masks all over our faces, and things that have gone totally crazy. I really miss all those classroom sessions, and I've been talking about online learning, but so wonderful actually, seeing all those pictures, and thank you so much. Okay, so I think I'll just go back to the rest of it, and then we'll have a small discussion. Okay, so I think I'll just go back to the rest of it, and then we'll have a small discussion, and then we'll have the song as well. Is that okay with you?
Okay, sir. Okay.
All right, yeah. So let me just go on with the presentation now. So is my presentation visible again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So we have been talking about online learning platforms, and these are the 5 online learning platforms that I would like you to take a look at, to have a feel of how e-content actually works, in an academic context. So we are moving on to the very important term that, that is the focus of our discussion today, which is e-content itself. And it is very simply stated, we know it's digital content that can be transmitted over a computer network, such as the internet, for instance, and it could be e-content, like whatever e-content that you developed could be made available on a digital platform, and it could be made available on a website, it could be made available on your personal blog, or it could be made available on a course that you have specifically designed for your students that has been made available online. So you develop your e-content, and then what you do is you upload it onto a personal blog or a website or a course, or whatever. So that is how it works. As simple as that. So we also need to take a look at the very popular kinds of e-content. I mean, we usually talk of 5 major kinds of e-content, or rather we restrict our discussions to 5 major kinds of e-content, which is text, you have images, you have audio, video, and these days we have been talking about animation as well. But again, see, we had a small discussion on SWAYAM earlier, and if you go to the SWAYAM website, the government of India has actually identified 4 quadrants that need to be kept in mind while you are designing a course in e-content. using e-content rather on the Swayam platform. So if you have any plans of designing a course on the Swayam platform using e-content for your students, you need to keep in mind these 4 quadrants. And these 4 quadrants are, the first one is something that they have termed as e-tutorial, which includes like some very simple videos and animations and PowerPoints and podcasts and all. These are not real learning material. In fact, like these could be termed as, kind of quite similar to advanced organizers. Initial materials that you provide to the students before they are actually introduced to the subject material that they are there to study. So first of all, the first quadrant has been termed by Swayam as e-tutorial, and the second quadrant is e-content. And in the e-content quadrant, what they have included is they have e-books that actually could be read, and then there are illustrations and open educational resources, or OERs as we call it, or whatever else you plan to add in the course. All these things could be added into the e-content quadrant. And then the third quadrant is something called discussion forums. And the discussion forums need to be, where students would actually put forward their doubts and clarifications and all, and where actually peer assignments could be submitted, and where actually peer assessment could be done, and so on and so forth. That is the third quadrant. And then you also have one more quadrant, which is an evaluation quadrant, which is where you have these, actual testing and assessment that is going on, MCQs, assignments, projects, and so on and so forth. So when you're designing e-content, you need to sort of pay attention to all these 4 quadrants, and you need to design materials that would, cater to the requirements of all these 3 quadrants. So it's not just enough that you rely on, mere text or images or audio and video or animation even. Rather, what you would need to do is, you would probably have to focus on a range of e-content materials that could be used for, your specific purposes. So basically, we are all familiar with these 4 kinds. But the question that needs to be asked is whether these are all the e-content are these all that, e-content is all about? I would like you to take a look at, a range of educational resources that could be used as e-content, but which we have never really thought about as e-content, things that could be used as e-content, but which we have never really thought about as e-content, besides these 5 major categories that we are very commonly include under the, or include in the, e-content spectrum. So let's take a look at some other e-content that we could probably very easily develop. Now, the first one is, of course, PowerPoint presentations. Now, PowerPoint presentations could be very easily incorporated, and this is something that we have been doing since time immemorial. And, that's something that could be very easily incorporated, and this is something that this is a format that students are very familiar with. So it could be very easily, you could just create a PowerPoint presentation and include it as an e-content material into your, course or wherever you're planning to sort of include it in. And while we are talking about PowerPoint presentations, we also need to talk about Prezi presentations. Now, I'm sure like there are several of you who are familiar with Prezi presentations, but Prezi presentations are actually carrying PowerPoint presentations onto the next level, where there's a higher level of interactivity and where there is what do you say? I mean, they're like Prezi presentations are much more visually appealing, where you can actually drag one object from one end to the other, and lots of other options are available. It's typically a presentation, but with lots of other options that are lot more options than are available on a typical PowerPoint presentation. So PowerPoint presentations and Prezi presentations could actually be considered as e-content materials. Then you have guides. Now, like I've come across several courses where there are, specific guides that have been offered as e-content materials, like you start your project with a step-by-step quick guides. You might have come across this step-by-step quick guides on, not just in courses, but on websites even, which like sort of help you ease out the maneuvering process, how you should carry yourself forward, what are the things that you should be on the lookout for, and so on and so forth. Suppose you're supposed to sort of submit a project, for instance, a step-by-step guide process to project submission could be prepared, and this could be actually used as an e-content material. So guides are again like very common e-content materials that could be used. In fact, I was having like what happens is, like we are on the lookout for like very complicated e-content materials, developing animations and developing videos and developing overlapping screen captures and all these things that are like absolutely technical. Just the other day, I was having a very small phone conversation with your principal and the teacher, and she was asking me if a WhatsApp message could be used as an e-content material, which I thought was a very interesting point. In fact, probably that is the kind of e-content material that we should probably be focusing on. You could just very easily speak into your WhatsApp, just record a message on WhatsApp and then, upload it onto your drive, which is basically an MP3 file. And from the drive, what you can do is you do some very basic audio editing and then could be used as e-content material. Excellent idea. I mean, like, somehow what has happened is we have restricted ourselves to developing very complicated types of e-content. Complicated types of e-content that requires a lot of technical expertise, whereas we should rather be focusing on, e-content that specifically suits our purpose. Suits our purpose. Are we going to design a course, a very complicated course where we are going to use all kinds of hi-fi e-content materials, or are we going to use simple forms of e-content that could be actually provided to your students that could be used in academic purposes? So you should probably be the one who should be deciding on it, and then probably we can decide what kinds of e-content we should be using in our courses. So these are two basic kinds of e-content. Moving on, we'll also have reports. Simple reports, and reports often in PDF formats and lots of reports. If you are designing a course, say for instance on the NEP 2020, the National Education Policy, you could just Google around, and there are umpteen reports that you should probably be coming up with. So download any one of those reports, and that could be actually used in your e-content material. You could provide a link to the original website, or you could actually upload it and provide a reference even. So actual reports could be, a very useful tool when you need factually supported information to go along with your teaching. So much like guides, the reports, they're pretty easy to find on a variety of topics. White papers, I'm sure you're familiar with the term white paper. A white paper is sort of an advanced kind of a report where actually it is more of an informational document rather, which is usually used in very complex situations, and it is usually used to promote the features of a solution to a very complex problem. So a white paper is actually prepared by an organization or a group of people who have been entrusted with the task of creating a white paper. Now, the only problem with white papers is if you're looking for a white paper, it's not that easy to find white papers on the internet, but if you can find one of them, they're great resources, well-sourced information, and these could be used in specific problem scenarios where a white paper could be a very valuable e-content resource in the material that you're preparing. So white papers and reports both could be very useful. Then we could make use of charts and graphs. I mean, we have been making use of charts and graphs, basically images. But again, you might have already discussed a lot on the importance of graphic aids when it comes to teaching. You might have had discussions on teaching aids in the first and second semesters. So it goes without saying that charts and graphs can help making, confusing data look a little more appealing and clear to your part. Not just confusing data alone, it is much more visually appealing, and it makes sense to, what you say, dyscalculic people like me. For me, like, it's very difficult to make sense of facts and figures. So if you give it to me on a picture, it's much easier for me. Otherwise it's kind of difficult. So charts and graphs could be very useful there. And webinars. See, like, so I've been told that, somebody is recording this whole program using an active presenter. So, the screen capturing this slide. And this webinar could, in fact, be uploaded onto YouTube. And that is, of course, material for e-content. So recording a whole thing up, recording a whole webinar up, then sometimes, person-to-person training is not possible. So webinars can be a great substitute for that. So look for webinars that could be, that could include presentations or a combination of a presentation or, face-to-face interactions and all that. If it's available there, if it's available on YouTube, and if it's available for free use, then make use of it. Upload it onto, your YouTube channel, or, provide a link to e-content that could be used as a webinar that could be used as e-content. If it is not readily available, you could record it like you're doing right now, and this video could in fact be uploaded and could be used as e-content. So that is there. Webinars. Then podcasts, again, like they have become very common these days. Now, the reference that I made to Anla Teacher's conversation the other day, speaking something into WhatsApp and, making use of that audio file, that could be in fact very easily converted into a podcast, if you ask me. And they're picking up in popularity. Podcasts are like picking up in popularity like anything, because like most of them are like very brief, like 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes, and you could just listen to a podcast. And you have these meditation podcasts that are available on mobile apps these days. You could just listen to somebody talking to you very calmly, serenely for 5 minutes, and then, you could just leave. I mean, it's like very short, it's very precise, and it's very useful. So, podcasts. The variety of information and topics can be covered on podcasts as well. So the teacher can create the podcast themselves, like using a simple recorder on the mobile, and then they can upload it onto, a website or a blog or whatever. And then games could be used. Just the other day, like we had a workshop. And the other week at our college, and the resource person actually was demonstrating Kahoot. Now, Kahoot is a website that you should be familiar with, where you can actually create small quizzes, and then these quizzes are made available in the form of a game, and where you actually have all these students competing with each other to find out who actually finishes off first. So that is in fact it's a part of gamification, and it's gamification itself has become an LMS, a learning management system buzzword these days. It's gaining in popularity, and learners don't always, sometimes, there are times when learners do not actually want to feel that they're learning something. So creating a fun training environment is through leaderboards or games and all, can make it fun. So create a small game, or if you find a link to a game somewhere online, link your website to that particular game, so that, learners can make use of that e-content. So that is there, podcasts and games. Then cartoons and illustrations, of course. A simple image or an illustration, can have a big impact on learners, much more than a paragraph or a text, we know. So consider, harnessing the power of images in your training. And I just wanted to ask you if you have heard of slide shares. I mean, some of you at least might have. If you don't really have the present time to create, or time, or the space or the resources to create a presentation of your own, or if you are looking for something that is written by or has been created by a subject matter expert, you could always consider SlideShare. Now, SlideShare is a social sharing website. It's a social sharing website in which there's a whole lot of presentations that has been uploaded by tons of users. Lots and lots of presentations. So all that you have to do is, you have to search the topic of your presentation on SlideShare, and you could download a presentation of, because most of these SlideShares, the presentations that have been uploaded on SlideShare are for free use. It has just been uploaded by a user like you and me, and it's there for sharing. So you can just download a presentation of the SlideShare website, and you could use it as an e-resource. Probably you'll have to credit it to the the original creator sometimes, or else you could use it as it is. So SlideShares could be very useful in e-content development. Then we also think of videos, of course, like videos, breaking up text documents with a video, and not just breaking up, supplementing it with a video is a very effective way of re-engaging learners and all. And there was a recent article that was published, that suggested that, especially if you're using a video for a learning purpose, the ideal length of the video should be like around 7 minutes. So it's always better if you keep this in mind, rather than going on. I've been lecturing for the last 1.5 hours almost, and I feel really guilty, though I've been speaking to you about 7 minutes. But the ideal length of a video should be 7 minutes. And, it's always better if you keep this in mind while you're designing a video for your e-content, for your e-content, So, that is there. And then case studies. Now, examples are extremely helpful, especially if you have real life examples when you're discussing a subject of social relevance, for instance. And if you have a case study, and if you have a document that is supporting a case study there, download it, use it as e-content. I mean, you don't have to prepare e-content as such. If it's already available there, you could download it and use it as e-content, provided that you attribute it to the creator. I mean, you can't just use it as your own. You always need to attribute it to the creator, and you need to provide the right references and so on and so forth. But if you have a case study, well and good. Then, problem-solving scenarios, case studies are actually an ideal form of a problem scenario situation, but there are many other ways to incorporate them into training. Like there are interactive learning videos could be used, question answer quizzes could be used, videos could be used, and so on. And then images and statistics put together are what we call infographics. Right? So lots of, you can see an infographic here, like it's about management, I believe. And infographics are so popular. It's because, they make learning information so easy. And when they're done right, actually, they make the learning information so easy. So infographics could be like, they're very easily created as well. If you have a basic image building software, image creating software, you could very easily create infographics. So infographics. And then, there are the simulations and screen captures. Now, generalized training, it doesn't always speak directly to the needs of some specific learner groups. Especially if there are like unique challenges and all. Like if you specific learning situations might require simulations. If you're talking of space travel and so on and so forth, simulations can be much more effective. And there are lots of simulating software available these days that could help create simulation e-content. So this can be shown via video or having learners conduct their own offline simulations and so on and so forth. Slightly complicated stuff, but again, not impossible. And then again, there are screen captures, which is probably the most popular ways of generating e-content these days. When we say screen captures, we are talking about print screen or screenshot options or, screen capturing options. So you can use this feature to include, website or software screenshots. You can use them to create step-by-step tutorials. Or you can use them to create side-by-side comparisons and many more. In fact, you will see that, I have included lots and lots of screen captures in this presentation, because sometimes what happens is, if you're actually planning for a demo, while you're going online, this could be, it could take up a lot of your time. One thing, and it could ruin your schedule itself, and on account of the connectivity issues that we are bound to be having, all the time, especially with the weather and all. So if you have all these screen captures and already, it's very easy for you to conduct a demo even, if you have, the necessary resources. So screen captures. And then, animated GIFs have always caught the attention of the students. You have this small cat that is repeatedly showing the same action again and again. So if you have to show an action that will repeat, create a GIF and, upload it as e-content. And creation of the GIF is very simple. All you have to do is you go to a website called Jiffy's GIF Maker, G-I-P-H-Y, Jiffy. Jiffy's GIF Maker, and you can, upload a picture and then you can just work about a little bit, do a little bit of controls here and there, and you can create a very funny GIF event. So GIFs could be very, very useful for e-content development, and then the checklist could also be used. Checklists in the sense that you can utilize them in e-learning and ensure that your learners understand all these new concepts by having them complete the checklist at the end of the teaching, include them in the actual teaching procedure you could even include them in the actual teaching procedure as a to-do checklist, things that need to be finished before you finish this course. So checklists can also be very efficiently used as e-content. Then e-books, of course, are also a form of e-content, and this actually means a number of things. It can be in a full-length novel that is in electronic format, or it just be in electronic white paper, or an extended articles format, which brings us to articles itself, and actual articles. It could be an HTML article that could be linked to a website. When you're creating some e-content, you could actually link to another website, and provide an HTML link onto an article that is of much use to you or your learners. So you could actually link to an article, or if you have it in a doc format or a PDF format, what you can do is you could actually upload it onto your website and cite user references, cite the references. So articles could also be productively used in e-content development. Then the last two are the blog posts and interviews. And blog posts are normally shorter in length and articles, but they can be very ideal for shorter training modules, quite similar to the kind of posts that you put over a classroom, for instance. So you have something like a small paragraph that you have typed out that you want your students to read, and those could be used as text content in blog posts. And then you can actually make use of interviews that have been conducted by somebody else, two subject matter experts, SMEs, as we call them. In video or text format interviews, the one very what do you say, the basic use. When you're struggling to come up with new ways of engaging your learners, what you can think of is you can use outside sources to supplement your own. Think of coming up using an actual interview that somebody has conducted with a subject matter expert, and you can actually use that interview, either provide a link to YouTube or actually upload to YouTube and find the references again. So when you're struggling to find new ways of engaging your learners, as I said, you could think of all these different kinds of content, and you need not necessarily restrict yourself to the basic 5 types that we have been dealing with all this while, text, video, audio, animation, and graphics. I mean, these are all the things that we can actually include, and these are all things that we can actually make use of in the development of e-content. Sorry. So now let us take a look at the steps or the phases in e-content development. Now this is again very, very important. Now one thing that I want to clearly understand at this point is that these are steps or phases in e-content development when you're thinking of designing a course using e-content. These are not steps in the development of e-content as such. Rather, these are steps in the development of a course using e-content. Now, there has to be a clear differentiation between these, because, and that is why we need to discuss about instructional design models. Now, what is an instructional design model? An instructional design model is, a framework that one would use to develop instructional materials or e-content that could be used by instructional designers. And what an instructional design model basically does is it provides structure and even meaning to the learning materials, to the e-contents that you are developing. And it helps the designer visualize the course. How is the course going to be? And how would you sort of break the course down into, appropriate steps and stages and phases and so on and so forth. And it would also provide a guideline to achieve the learning objectives that have been designed. So this is what an instructional design model does. So there are different kinds of instructional design models, and each of these instructional design models have different kinds of steps or phases while developing the courses that would make use of e-content. So while we are discussing the steps or phases in e-content development, the first model, the instructional design model that comes to our mind is the ADDIE model. Now, the ADDIE model is probably one of the most popular instructional design models that have been used by instructional designers across the world while they are designing courses using e-content. I hope that's very clear. Now, the ADDIE model is it's simple instructional design framework that many instructional designers and training developers use to develop courses. Now, it is an acronym. The ADDIE is an acronym which stands for the 5 phases that the model talks about. And it's been developed by the Florida State University. And it's quite an old model, actually. It's developed somewhere in the 1970s, but it still continues to be the most popular model that has ever been used in instructional design. So we'll take a look at the 5 phases in the ADDIE model, and then we'll take a look at how, the e-content needs to be sort of incorporated into each one of these phases. So the first phase of the ADDIE model is all about the analysis phase. The A in ADDIE stands for analysis, in which, so the first thing that we need to keep in mind is you're about to design a course. And in this course, you're going to use plenty of e-content. So the first thing that you have in mind as an instructional designer when you're planning to design this course is, what is the problem that I am going to deal with in this course? What is the subject material that I'm going to deal with? Who is the audience going to be? What method of delivery will be best? Am I going to use a lecture? Am I going to use videos? Am I going to use quizzes am I going to, what is the kind of assessment that I'll be using, and what is the timeline that this course will be, making use of? How long is this going to last? Is it going to last for a couple of weeks, or is it going to last for a couple of months or 6 months, or is it going to be a 1 year long course, and so on and so forth? So in the analysis phase, as an instructional designer, I will try to understand the needs of the learners. Why do the learners require this training? What are the learning objectives that are to be delivered? What is the kind of target audience that I'll be dealing with, and what are the demographics? Demographics of this target audience. Are they going to be rural learners? Are they going to be urban learners? Are they going to be a mixed lot? What is their current knowledge level? Are they graduates? Or are they the school learners, or are they postgraduates or PhD holders? What are the skill sets that they need to acquire, and what are the skill sets that they already have, and what will be the limitations of these courses? So all these things will be, I'll have to analyze the whole situation in the analysis phase. So this is the first phase of the ADDIE model, the analysis phase. Moving on, we move on to the second phase, which is called the design phase. So in the design phase, I'll be, as an instructional designer, my major concerns would be, what are the goals and objectives of this course, and what the order of delivery methods should be. I should be constructing something called a storyboard. It is quite similar to a script, in which I'll be dividing my entire course into a series of sequences or scenes, and I'll be planning like what to incorporate in each one of these scenes. And what should the material look like? What kind of a appearance should my course have? How should it look like? What colors should I be actually using? What templates should I be using on this course, and so on? So it's creating the structure of the courses there. And then when you're talking of e-content, you talk of something called assets. Now, assets is, like for instance, like very simply explained, it is a small picture, a very small picture that would be using in the development of e-content, And I use that small picture, I place it on the corner of the screen, and I place a little bit of text on the right side of the on the image, explaining the image further. So I have two small assets here. One is an image, and the other one is a small bit of text that I have placed beside. So when I place both of these assets together, I have created something called a learning object, a small learning object. And lots of learning objects together form a module, lots of modules together form a unit, and units together form a whole course, and so on and so forth. So this is a structure that I need to follow. And what is the kind of structure that how should I design this whole thing? That is one thing that I need to keep in mind. Sorry. I need to keep in mind while I'm designing, while I'm in the design phase. Okay, so I should further, elaborate on the storyboard and the script, and I should design the interface as well. What kind of a user interface should I have? Where should the user click to move on from one slide to the next, from one scene to the next, from one web page to the next? What should be the mode of delivery, and so on and so forth? So this is the second phase. The third phase in the ADDIE model is called development. Now, this is actually where the fun begins. So you have developed a few, you have developed a few assets, you have developed a few learning objects, and you have these small images and text bits, and you have these videos and all these things. And what you do is, what is the content going to be, and what technology will be used, what testing needs to occur, and what editing needs to happen? These are the 4 questions that we need to consider here while developing these. So here the fun actually begins, and we put together all our expertise and all our skills as an instructional designer to actually put all these learning assets into a real form. And we have been planning this all along, and so much so that, it looks exactly the way we want it to appear on screen. So after the design phase, the development phase actually refers to assembling all this content together, text, audio, video, animation, everything put together using various tools. And this is where we get the e-content that we have put up together, all ready for the delivery. And we would also test it here. Testing in the sense like, we do a sample test and see if all this actually works the way we want it to work. And we would also look for something called quality assurance. Quality assurance in the sense, like the government of India has actually specified a few standards of quality that needs to be maintained while e-content is developed. So we would also have to see if the content that we have developed actually caters to those quality standards. So that actually happens in the development phase. And then we'll move on to the next phase, which is the implementation phase, the fourth stage in the ADDIE model, the fourth phase in the ADDIE model, in which we will decide who will train the curriculum, where and when will the learners be trained, are all the necessary resources available? So delivering the content on various platforms. So where is it that I am going to sort of deliver this thing? Am I going to put all this e-content that I have developed onto a blog? Or am I going to create a website? Am I going to create a Moodle site? Or am I going to create it somewhere else? Maybe in a Google site or in a Google Classroom or wherever. So where is it that all these things are going to be put up? That is the actual implementation phase. And who will train the curriculum? Who is the instructor going to be? And, what kind of LMS am I going to use? What kind of learning management system am I going to use? Is it Moodle or is it, something else like, maybe a Google site or a blogger or WordPress, or what kind of a learning management system am I going to use? Where do the students actually enroll for the course? And once they are enrolled, how do I track the students' progress? And how do I score them? How do I grade them? How do I ensure that they are moving ahead at a regular pace, and so on and so forth? So the actual implementation of what I have done takes place in the fourth phase. And the final phase is something called an evaluation phase. Now, the evaluation phase is actually after the implementation, after your students have enrolled, after they have completed the course, and then you try to evaluate and you try to find out if the learners have actually understood the content. And how do you know? How do you know if they have understood the content? You could provide them a feedback session, for instance. How did the trainer perform? If you have actually used some instructional trainer, to interact with the students, how did he actually perform well? How do you know about that? So delivering, after the delivery has been done, you need to evaluate it. After the implementation has been done, you need to evaluate it and identify how you really need to identify how the course has been accepted, if it has been accepted by the target audience, or if it has been rejected by the target audience, saying that the objectives have not been realized. So have the objectives been realized? How effective has the learning been? Or how has the learning experience been? Has it been a very user-friendly interface, or was it very difficult to actually move from one web page to the next? Is the user interface very complicated? And so on and so forth. So this is usually done through collection of feedback, and after the collection of the feedback is done, usually remedial measures are adopted, which are incorporated in the next version. In the next version, when you design the next version of the same e-content in a new format. So these are actually for the 5 phases that have been specified by the ADDIE model. And the one thing that we really need to keep in mind is these are not actually the phases in the development of e-content. Rather, these are the phases in the development of an e-course in which e-content will be used. So that is something that we need to be really, really clear about. So the ADDIE model is, again, the most popular one that continues to be used by instructional designers across the world. And as far as I know, there's strictly no competition. Now, the Dick and Carey model of instructional design has also been used. It's like comparatively by very few people. Now, this is again another instructional design model that has been used by at least a few instructional designers, comparatively a newer one, which was developed somewhere around the 1980s, 1978 rather, which is quite similar in the pattern, but which makes use of formative and summative evaluation and so on and so forth. Right, moving on. We move on to the creation of e-content tools, and what kind of software should we use while we are actually creating e-content. Now, this is again like, as I said earlier, you have several options, and all these options actually depend on the kinds of e-content that you're actually planning to develop. I mean, again, this would actually depend on the kind of requirements that you have. What kind of e-content do I need to provide to my students? Just because, everybody is using a video, should I use a video as well? Just because everybody is using an animation, Should I create an animation as well? Should I be spending 10 hours creating an animation video when I could probably, provide them any content in the form of a PDF file that could be read in 2 minutes? So this is the kind of questions that we need to evaluate as teachers. And we also need to kind of explore the different kinds of software that are available at our disposal while we are creating e-content. Now, the first kind of software is, of course, freeware. Freeware, as we know, like software that can be used without any monetary charges at all. There are a few restrictions that are imposed for its use, modification, and redistribution. Now, some of these freewares are also called the adwares because some of them might have advertisements, small advertisements propping up when you're using them. The source code actually, the code that is used for the creation of these software is not provided anywhere, but it can be passed on to anyone free of cost. If I have a copy of the freeware with me, I can pass it over to you over WhatsApp or over any other sharing platform. Now, the most common examples of freeware that we are familiar with is, of course, Google Chrome. If you've used Skype, yes, that is there. And there's, of course, Adobe. This is the Adobe Reader, in fact, PDF Reader. So these are all like freeware that we are all familiar with. And, this is one kind of software that we could use. Now, we could also make use of open source software or OSS. Now, open source software is the kind of software in which the source code is made available to the public. Anybody can sort of inspect the source code and, how this program has been designed. And it is licensed with an open source license. So anybody can use it. And very often it's developed in a public collaborative manner. Now, again, like Moodle is one very common platform that is available as an open source software, and OpenOffice.org, which is often considered as a substitute for Microsoft Office. I am sure some of you might already be using OpenOffice.org. That is again like, an open source software. And this small thing that you see here, this is the logo of a software called GIMP, G-I-M-P, which we'll be taking a look at in the coming slides. That's again an image editing software that is a very common software that is an open source software. Moving on, we also have proprietary software. Proprietary software is just the opposite of freeware, actually. Non-free software that is owned by an individual or a company, which means that if you have to use this software, you need to pay money for it. And the source code is usually kept secret, and it's exclusive property of the owners. And the most common, of course, is Adobe, again, like Photoshop, which is probably the most common proprietary software that we know of. And now these two, again, Windows 10 is again a proprietary software, something that you have to pay for. And Microsoft Office is again a proprietary software, something that we have to pay for. So these are again like proprietary software. And the last kind of software is again public domain software, which is probably the freest software that you could probably come across, which means that the copyright holder donates it to the public itself. Anybody could actually make use of it. Anybody could modify it. Anybody could redistribute it, and it could be used by anyone free of cost and minimal restrictions on use. So nobody is claiming copyright for it. And some of the very common public domain software are SQLite, Qmail, Blast, and so on and so forth. So these are the 4 kinds of software that we could probably use for creation of e-content. Now, we would also quickly take a look at some very common software tools that could be used for, generation of e-content. And first, I thought I'd take a look at graphic editing tools, which means basic image editing tools, in which you could just, import a simple image, and you could just do some basic image editing like resizing an image or, stretching it across or, cropping an image or, turning it into black and white, and all these things that we have been very commonly doing using all these mobile image editors that we have these days. So what I have done is I've included a couple of softwares that could be used for image editing that I want you to be familiar with. At the same time, I have included a couple of online platforms where you could actually go online and do some image editing online. And third is I've included some mobile apps that could be used for, image editing. So this is the way I've done for image editing, audio editing, video editing, and all the editing tools that we'll be discussing about, So we have a few softwares, then we have a few online online editing platforms, and then we have a few mobile editing apps that could be This is the kind of format that I have used. So the first graphic editing tool that we should probably be familiar with is GIMP, which is again probably the most popular. In fact, this is one software that is often considered as a substitute for Adobe Photoshop, because it is almost all the same functionalities that you would find in Photoshop, because it is almost all the same functionalities that you would find in Photoshop. And this is how the GIMP interface looks like. It's not very complicated as such. And one thing about GIMP is it comes with a very detailed tutorial, that you could download as a PDF and which you could use. Sorry. Which you could use for image creation. Now, the GIMP interface is it is a no-nonsense interface, if you ask me, where you have all these basic functionalities like you have this cropping and trimming and what do you call this, paintbrush, and all these basic functionalities that you would need of a simple image editor, but which of course also has the necessary complexities if you're a very serious image editor who's determined to create some Photoshop-like images. You can make use of GIMP for that as well. So that is the first one. The second one is, of course, DrawPad. Now, DrawPad is again a graphic editor that is it is used in both in image composition as well as in manipulation. And I mean, like, you could create a new image as such using DrawPad. You could create sketches and paintings and all on your computer. You could use it for logos and banner ads and for create drawing diagrams and icons and so on and so forth. It's a very simple DrawPad. It has, in fact, a purchase edition as well. In fact, if you want more features, probably you can purchase it. Well, it can be downloaded from nzsoftware.com. It's a very popular image editor that is very commonly used by e-content developers. Now, again, like, this is how the DrawPad interface looks like. It is even much simpler than GIMP. And in fact, like, it has none of the complexities that the GIMP left side interface has. It's very simple, and you have this pen and brush and marker options, and simple save as, and like very simple user interface that anybody with a minimal amount of technical expertise can make use of, and image transformation, image creation, and all that stuff. So DrawPad is probably one software that you should be taking a look at. Then you have, of course, the master of all those tools, which is called Adobe Photoshop. Now, Photoshop is probably the king of all image creating softwares, image manipulation softwares, and of course, it is not free. And no wonder, because that is the kind of possibilities that Photoshop offers. So it has a wonderful interface. I mean, like, the one major thing that makes Photoshop different from all the other softwares is that it provides you with these opportunities to work in layers, which makes that the kind of image manipulation that it offers is immense in fact, and it is very commonly used for 3D image generations and so on and so forth. And there are plenty of Photoshop tutorials that are available on YouTube. In fact, like, I've been using Photoshop like probably for the last 5 to 6 years, and I have like very minimal technical expertise when it comes to Photoshop. But every time I need to do something on Photoshop, all I need to do is do a relevant term search on YouTube, and there is some tutorial or the other coming up with all the necessary instructions. So it's very easy, basically very easy to make use of Photoshop even. Then, of course, there is one more software that I want you to be familiar with when it comes to image editing, which is called Inkscape. Inkscape is again like a very, a very common image editing tool that we need to be familiar with. And whether you're an illustrator or a designer or a web designer, as it has been stated here itself, you just need to be someone with very minimal technical expertise. And especially if you're planning to create vectors. You know what a vector is, right? A vector is like, an artificially created shape that could be used for designing and all. So if you're creating vectors and all, Inkscape is very useful. Again, like, not a very massively complicated interface. It has like, the Inkscape interface looks like this, very basic, and cropping and, the tools and all, like, it's like, quite simple, just like the what do you call the drop pad interface. Same and drop pad are like quite similar, and they could be very easily used. So these are the four image editors that I would like you to be familiar with. And if you're planning to go online and do some online image editing, that is, you haven't downloaded any software, you don't have any image editors with you, so but you have a picture that you need to do something with. So what you can do is you can go to Canva. Canva is undoubtedly the the very best online image editing website that you can probably come across. Now, this is my Canva page actually, and you can see that right down here, like this is the brochure that I created using Canva, like for the teaching event that we conducted at the college last week. So even this has been designed using Canva. I mean, anything can be designed using Canva, whether it's a print or a document or it's a book cover or a document, or if it's a book cover or a photo collage or a flyer or a brochure or an Instagram post, a social graphic quote or whatever. Think of anything, Canva has all these ready-made templates, and you could very easily create all of them online on Canva. And getstencil.com. Stencil is another website that you could take a look at if you're planning to edit images online. This is again like not as functional as Canva, but again lots of options being provided on Stencil. Again, this is a free service. Canva is also a free service, but if you are planning to download high quality images and all, maybe you will have to pay. Otherwise, lots of their options and lots of their functionalities are provided online free. So Stencil and Canva, both these websites you need to be familiar with. And finally, as I suggested earlier, these are some very, very common mobile imaging and editing apps that most of you must already be having on your mobiles. So if you don't have the software, if you're not working on a laptop, if you're not working on a desktop, if you don't have plans to go online to create images, download these very simple apps: Snapseed, Befunky, Pixlr, and Photor. All four are excellent mobile image editing apps that you could probably use in your mobiles. You can just resizing and image editing and so on and so forth. You might know several others that could be of equal use, but these are four, very popular mobile apps that I have been using for a long time. So that's why I've listed them here. I'm going at a slightly faster pace, Anila teacher, because, I have a few more slides to complete. I hope that is okay, because we are like slightly running out of time. I hope that's fine.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. And do you mind if I take like 10 minutes extra? Is that fine? Like 12:10?
Yeah, it's okay, sir.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we are moving on to audio editing tools now. And in fact, like we had this, extensive session that lasted for about one whole day on Audacity last week at that workshop that we conducted at our college. Now, Audacity is probably the most popular audio editing software that we can think about. One thing is it is a free software. And the second thing is it's comparatively very easy to use when you compare it with several other audio editing softwares that are available for free. Now, what is Audacity usually used for? Like several of these audio recordings that we might be making, using a mobile, for instance, or maybe on your desktop computer and so on and so forth, might not be like very pleasing on the ears. So using Audacity, you can basically, convert mono into stereo, or if it's a mono track, you can convert it into a stereo track. You can add some effects, for instance. You can add some little bit of echo. You can add a little bit of bass, or you can add a little bit of treble or whatever you want. And then you can combine tracks. You can add a little bit of background noise. You can add a little bit of background music if you want. You can add another audio track. You can combine tracks and so on and so forth. So lots of editing options are there. But again, like if you're planning to learn how to work with Audacity, again, like that requires a lot of time. But this is one software that we could all probably think of downloading and installing on our computer, so much so that we could start working on it. It's not something that could be achieved probably overnight. For that matter, neither audio editing nor video editing is not a skill that can be achieved overnight. It's something that we do over and over again, and we gradually learn to master these things. That's how it happens. So this is how the Audacity interface looks like. Now it's very simple. You can just open the Audacity interface like this. You could start a recording by just clicking the red button over there and just stop here and then play what you have recorded and so on and so forth. By default, it comes in a stereo track, and you have this effects thing here. Like you can click on it, and you can remove the noise. Even you can remove the background noise. Even you can add some effects, as I said earlier. It's very easy to manipulate, an audio file if you have created an audio file using a very simple audio recorder. So Audacity is a must-have for any person who actually has intentions of preparing some e-content, e-audio content actually. So if you're planning to have some e-audio content, make sure that you have Audacity installed. If you have Audacity, I wouldn't recommend any other of these audio editing tools, because that is more than enough. But if you happen to be, one of those people who are actually looking for a slightly simpler interface, then probably you could go for WavePad. Now, WavePad is again like a free audio editing tool that is available at the e-content developer's disposal. And this is how the WavePad's interface looks like. It is much less complex than, Audacity, but again, it has less features also. It is meant like much less features when compared to Audacity. But again, like it's an audio editing software that is very commonly used by instructional designers. Then you have something called SoundForge. Now, just as I was talking about Adobe Photoshop like earlier, SoundForge is actually the king of audio editing software. But of course, you have to pay a fortune if you have to use SoundForge. It's a paid software. And this is the kind of software that is actually used by, music directors and sound engineers and so on and so forth. So we really do not need that kind of an audio editing software if you're planning on creation of some, some very basic e-audio content. So we really don't have to go for SoundForge. But if you are one of those people who would like to have the perfect sound coming out of your e-content, then probably you should go for the SoundForge experience. And this is how it looks like. And then the last one that I want you to take a look at is Ocean Audio, which is again a free, and it's a free software. It is very easy, fast, and powerful. It's a very small file, actually. Very small file, less functionalities again compared to Audacity. And this is how the Ocean Audio interface looks like. But basic, it has some very basic editing, editing elements that can be incorporated in the Ocean Audio interface. So this is also one interface, one software that you could probably experiment with. Now, just as in the case of images, if you're planning to go online and, if you're planning to edit your audio online, Twisted Wave is the best option. You could just drop a file here from your computer. You have done a recording, so just drop a file here, upload a file here, and then, you could either, if you have uploaded it onto the Google Drive, you can import it from here and import from SoundCloud or whatever. And then you can basically do whatever editing you need to do with your editing. You can improve the volume or decrease the volume or decrease the noise and all so on. There's lots of options that are available. So if you don't want to have any softwares installed on your computer, go to twistedwave.com, upload your audio file on there, and do whatever editing you need to do there. Just like Twisted Wave, we also have Bear Audio. Bear Audio is again it's a very simple interface. You can drag and drop your files here, and then you can open from a URL if it's from if you plan to download a file from online, from a link, for instance, you can open the URL here, or you can drag and drop your files from your computer here. Just again, just as you did in the previous Twisted Wave interface, you could probably do the same here as well. You could do the basic audio editing online. And the most common mobile audio editing apps that you should be familiar with is, of course, Voice Pro. Voice Pro, most of you might have used already. There is Audio Lab, there is FL Studio, and Super Sound. These are all, again, mobile audio editing apps that basic functionalities. You can't expect the kind of functionalities that you would have in Audacity when you're using a mobile app. But again, these have some very basic functionalities that you could make use of. So if you have to clear up your sound, or, probably increase the volume of your sound and give it a more professional touch and all, maybe you could use some of these mobile apps. We are now moving on to video editing software. And VideoPad is probably, again, the most common software that is out there, which includes cropping your video files, reducing the time of your video files, or, cropping your video files, or trimming your video files, and compressing your video files, and so on and so forth. Because quite often what happens is, many of the video files that you create for e-content are like quite hefty in size, going to like several GB and so on and so forth. So the compression is very important. File compression is very important when it comes to video editing. And you can compress these files using VideoPad, and then you can upload it online. So VideoPad is a very common software, and this is how the VideoPad interface looks like. Now, one thing that I need to really tell you when I talk about video editing tools is this kind of requires a basic level of technical expertise. And it's not something that, can be developed overnight. As I told you earlier, this is something that we need to sort of deal with time and again. You need to experiment, and you need to do things here and there. You have to sort of make a trial and error you need to have this trial and error kind of an experience, before you're able to master these things. So video editing is not something that could be done like by any novice. Suddenly you download the software and suddenly you start editing a video. That's not something that happens. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of patience, and then it's only then that it's possible. So this is the next one that I want to take is OpenShot. OpenShot is again like very commonly used by e-content generators in particular, precisely because like most of it's available for free. And then, most of the features that it has is available for free. And you can have these window-to-window kind of, videos and all. You might have seen these videos in which like there's a presentation going on in the background, and the actual presenter might be, in a small corner window somewhere down the top of either in the downward right corner or the left corner or wherever, So the presenter is there and the video is going on in the background. So you have all these options from the OpenShot interface, creating all sort of combinations and so on and so forth. Then you have Blender. Blender is again like, it is like not totally free, but of course here it says free to use for any purpose, but it's not totally free. There is a pricing for Blender as well, but lots of features in Blender are available for free. So video editing when it comes to video editing tools, Blender is also right there at the forefront. Now, one thing about Blender is it is used for 3D video generation as well. Most of the other like video generation is 2D, but when it comes to Blender, you could use it for 3D image creations and so on and so forth. It's again like a slightly complicated interface, and I don't think like many of us would be able to sort of, generate e-content out of it overnight. But again, like, through a lot of efforts and a lot of patience, this is one interface that we could probably master. So the Blender interface is there. And then the last one is VSDC. This is again a totally free video editor that could be used in a very few functionalities, but most of the functionalities could be used by e-content generators for developing video content. And this is how the VSDC interface looks like. All right. Now, when it comes to online video editing, again, like, see, one problem with online video editing is if you're planning to upload a video online, it takes a long time. Usually, if you're planning to upload a video to YouTube even, it takes a long time, probably several minutes ahead. So I don't know how far online video editing would be a practical option for you. But if you're planning to do that, Magisto is the best option. It's free. And what you could do is you can just upload a video online. You could provide the video with lots of effects. You could trim it. You can crop it. You can trim it. You can provide lots of effects and so on and so forth. Wonderful website. And there's also Clipchamp. Clipchamp is again, clipchamp.com is again a very, very, very popular website that can be used to edit videos online. You could sign up with Google, for instance, and once you're signed up, you could upload a video and do all the editing that you need to do online itself. Now, the most common video editing mobile apps that are available, of course, you might be familiar with Filmora Go. Filmora is again a video editing software that is available online as well. But again, it's the paid software. But Filmora Go is comparatively free, and InShot is there, and then Premiere Clip and Pick, Play, Post. All these are like very popular mobile video editing apps that you can install on your mobile itself and use InShot and all. It's a very, very, very easy interface. You could just import any videos and you could add music and add voice and add echo and clip and crop and do whatever you want. It's a very, very easy interface that InShot has. It's probably one of the most popular mobile video editing apps as well. So these are 4 mobile video editing apps that I have listed here. Now, animation tools, when it comes to animation tools, again, animation is not something quite similar to video editing. It is something that requires a lot of effort and patience. One thing that I have understood is, if you're basically an artist who can draw, it will help you a lot as an animator, or animator rather. Here, you're making use of this website called animaker.com. And if you're an animator, plenty of options are there. But basically, I am a person who can't possibly draw. So I find it very difficult to sort of draw something and create an animation out of it. But if you happen to be a person like me who can't possibly draw, Animaker has lots of other options. In fact, what it has is it has a lot of pre-designed, characters that are already there, which you can you make use of to animate according to your needs. Like there are lots of boys, there are lots of women, there are lots of girls, there are lots of old people, there are lots of dogs, there are lots of cats, and so on and so forth. Lots of animated characters are already designed there, and you can make use of each one of these characters depending on your purpose, and you can use them to animate. So that is one thing. But on the other hand, if you happen to be a person if you're an online artist who could probably draw, the options are plenty, and in fact, you can create lots of animations using animaker.com. There is also one more, which is called K3D. K3D.org is, again, it's an open source software. So again, like you could go to K3D.org, not quite as user-friendly as Animaker, but again, this is one website that you can explore if you're trying to create an animation. And the last one that I want you to take a look at is Synfig. Synfig is again like, it creates for 2D animation tools mostly, and it could be downloaded, and this could be used for Windows and Linux as well. And very simple animation software. Again, what you would require is, some basic drawing skills are essential if you're planning to create, animation characters and so on and so forth. If you ask me, Animaker is the best, because even if your drawing skills are minimal, you could create a few animations using Animaker. Now, screen capturing tools are again like very important when it comes to the development of e-content, because Active Presenter, the one that you are using right now to create this whole webinar screen, is probably the most important and the most user-friendly screen capturing app that I have come across. I've heard so many people talking about Screencast-O-Matic and lots of other things, but I don't think I have come across another screen capturing tool that is as user-friendly as Active Presenter. This happens to be my personal favorite, and if you're planning to capture something on screen, I would strongly recommend Active Presenter. And so it helps the generation of e-content in the sense that the whole thing, whatever appears on your desktop, can actually be captured on screen, and this could be converted into video e-content that could be uploaded online. Another screen capturing tool that is very, very, very popular is OBS Studio. Now, OBS Studio is not as user-friendly as Active Presenter, if you ask me. But one thing is, OBS Studio is more commonly used as a YouTube live streaming software as well. So it can capture whatever is happening on the screen, and it could be used as a software that could help stream this content through your YouTube channel live. So if you're planning to live stream something on YouTube, OBS Studio is the screen capturing tool that you should be going for. Now, this is again something that we need to be familiar with. Google has everything under a single Google roof. Now, these are all things that we are already familiar with, so I don't think we should be spending even a couple of minutes on this slide. In fact, there are lots of e-content development tools that Google has come up with, starting off from the classroom. Then there's a Drive, Docs, Gmail, Calendar, Hangouts, Sheets, Slides, Forms, Sites, and whatnot. Now, if you have a G Suite account for your college, for instance, the potentials and the opportunities that it offers are immense. For instance, lots of restrictions that are imposed on individual Gmail accounts are not there when you have a G Suite account. So if possible, I would really, really recommend St. Thomas Training College to opt for a G Suite account, because, it offers plenty and plenty of options, especially from an institutional point of view. So again, everything under a single Google roof. So we might have already explored several of these already as teachers and students. So we don't have to spend much time on it. Then Okay, so all said and done, we have like a e-content. We have discussed software that could be developed for that could be used for development of e-content and so on and so forth. But again, like what do you do with all this e-content that you have generated? I mean, how do you actually put all these things into place? Either you could sort of, upload it all onto your own website, but if you don't have the time and, the resources and space for sort of arranging all these things into place, what you could do is you could go for a content authoring tool, a piece of software that enables the creation of digital content, not just the creation of digital content, but also to generate, manipulate, and integrate the multimedia objects that we have generated. So you have lots of e-content that you have generated already. Now, what content authoring tools does is, these content authoring tools put together all these e-content that you have generated into a proper format. So it could be as simple as creating a simple Microsoft document or as complex as a graphic design tool. Now, what you do is, so the simplest way probably of understanding this is you have lots of text documents that you have created, you have lots of video documents that you have created, you have lots of audio documents that you have created, you have even created a few animations. Now what a content authoring tool would do is, see, this is the most popular content authoring tool that we have at our disposal these days, which is Adobe Captivate. And Captivate is what Captivate does is, it has tons and tons of pre-designed templates and pre-designed templates and formats in which you'd be able to incorporate all these individual e-content objects that you have designed for yourself and for your students. So what happens is, you incorporate all these e-content materials and it comes across as a perfect website, a perfect learning management system where your students can actually log in and see all these things in the most popular interface, most user-friendly interface that is possible. So, what a content authoring tool does is it generates, manipulates, and integrates all these different kinds of e-content material that we have generated. So that probably is the biggest advantage when it comes to Adobe Captivate. But the one problem with most of these content authoring tools is that they're all paid softwares. You don't get these for free. So whether it is Adobe Captivate or whether it is Elucidat, which is again a very popular content authoring software, or whether it is Easy Generator, which is again a very, very, very popular content generating software. All these are paid software. Now, if you ask me if there are in fact free softwares which does content authoring, yes, there's something called Xerte, Xerte, which is again like a free content authoring software, and there's also something called EXE Learning, which is again a free content authoring software. But personally, I believe these paid softwares are like far, far ahead when it comes to the potentials that it has, as well as the opportunities that it provides to instructional designers. Now, we would also take a look at the OERs, or the Open Educational Resources, which are in fact free, absolutely free, openly licensed educational resources that you have. Now, see, we have been talking about the development of e-content, but the one problem that we have as teachers, we are burdened with lots of things, lots of other things, which includes management and administration even. So there are times when we actually do not have the time to sit down and create all these resources. So what do we poor teachers do when we really don't have the time and resources to create all these e-content? We can opt for these open educational resources that have been created by other people, but which have been licensed for free use, which means that I have created this e-content, but I have granted it open to the whole world to use for free. So there are a few websites that as teachers we need to be really, really familiar with. So if you really don't have the time for e-content generation yourself, what you can do is you can go to the National Repository of Open Educational Resources, NROER, and what you could do is you could go into the website and see, this is what you see inside. There's an e-library here, And you could there's this repository here, and there's an e-library here, and which shows there are open educational resources mapped to school curricular, homogeneous collection of resources, and so on. And once you go inside, this is what you see. See, this is an e-library, and you see that there are tons and tons of resources that have been created by teachers already, which could be used by several teachers across the world, free of use. See, here we have almost 5,926 documents uploaded, audios, images, videos, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the most popular open educational resources websites that we have in the country. And this is one website that we really, really need to bookmark. Another one is again ictcurriculum.gov.in. Again, another OER resource website. And here unlimited resources have been provided by teachers. Again, like, this have been created by teachers across the country, and these have been made available free for use. And see, this is how it looks like. Lots and lots of documents have been made available. Individual tutorial documents have been made available, courses for teachers, courses for students, and lots of resources are available. So this is again another website that we need to bookmark as teachers. Now, a couple of other resources. This is again this is outside the country. This is one learning resource exchange for schools that has been developed by the European Union. Again, this is one website that I found very interesting. Lots of resources have been made available, and unfortunately not for languages, but for science subjects and computers and several social sciences and geography and all this subjects. Resources have been made available in this website as well. You might also have heard of Project Gutenberg. Again, another website that we need to bookmark. This is a repository of resources of ebooks. Plenty of ebooks available, thousands and thousands of ebooks that are available online that could be downloaded free of cost, and that could be read at your own. This is one website that definitely you should be familiar with already, but I just wanted to share it. And this is the last one. Merlet, again, is another, OER resource. Which has, like you could see here, 92,271 learning resources are available. So you just have to sign up basically using your Google ID or whatever, and you could start making use of all those resources that could be of use to you. Now, where do you actually deliver all this e-content? As I told you already, you could make use of those content authoring tools. You could make use of those content authoring tools. Otherwise, what you could do is you could upload all this e-content that you have developed to your Google sites, available for free again. That is something that several of us teachers have been doing. You could upload them all to Blogger. That is again another option that we have. You could upload them onto WordPress. Now, these are all the things that you're familiar with: Blogger, WordPress, and blogging platforms and all that. And of course, there is, Moodle. Moodle is, of course, like a learning management system that has been lots and lots of discussions have been going on about Moodle. And this is one platform where lots of e-content is being uploaded currently. And Moodle, of course, has a few restrictions when it comes to, if you're hosting it on your own server, then Moodle is free. But if you're hosting your e-content on the Moodle cloud, then it's not free. So if you're hosting it on Moodle Cloud, you have another option, which is Genomio, and it's a free hosting service for Moodle, which is the most popular training tool in the world. So these are sites where we could actually upload the e-content that you have generated. And finally, last but certainly not the least, we cannot forget the Google Classroom also that we have been so vigorously using during the last couple of months. So plenty of e-content actually could be uploaded onto your Google Classrooms as well. Now, just one or two slides before I wind up. Now, one thing that we need to be really careful while we are developing e-content is copyrights. Because, we might be using lots of images of the internet. We might be using lots of text of the internet and so on and so forth. And we really, really need to be careful when it comes to copyrights. And though a lot needs to be discussed regarding copyright issues, as content creators, we need to keep in mind that there's no copyright infringement. We really need to keep in mind that there's absolutely no copyright infringement while we are creating e-content. So the least that we can do is, to opt for, when you are trying to get images for e-content development, what you can do is you can find free images at pixabay.com or freeimages.com. These are the best websites out there probably that would provide you images that are, license free. which do not have, which are copyright free and which have a free license. So if you are planning to take images, make sure that you download images from either of these two sites. So that is very important. And after the creation of e-content, sometimes if you're not really sure if you have kept up with all the copyright standards, then you could always do a plagiarism check. You know, for text, what you could do is you could go to this link, smallseotools.com, and check for plagiarism there. You could upload the text there and it would come up with a plagiarism report. You know, how much of your text has been plagiarized and so on and so forth. So if you think that the plagiarism is, you know, it's quite heavy, what you can do is you can try rephrasing the text and so on and so forth. Sometimes you might wonder if an image that you have used for e-content is copyrighted or not. What you can do is you can upload it onto Tineye, Tineye, or Tineye, or however you pronounce it, .com. And what you could do is you could do a reverse image search, you know. So if you upload it onto the website, then it will give you a result suggesting if, you know, this image has been copyrighted or not. But the basic line is we really need to be careful when it comes to copyright. So that is one thing. And the final thing that I want to talk about is how much of technology. We have been talking about e-content for a long time now, but there's always this question is how much of technology is excessive technology. Now we know that it's been just a couple of months since we have switched over to the online learning mode in Kerala. And I already have lots of students complaining about, you know, connectivity issues, mobile range issues, and even money issues. Some of them have been saying that it's, you know, it's quite not feasible to keep on recharging their, you know, data packages every now and then. So even otherwise, we need to consider this very vital question as to how much of technology is too much technology. How much of screen time is too much of screen time? You know, there are no definite answers for this, I'm sure. But at least for the time being, we need to realize that when we are actually pushing our students towards their mobiles and laptop screens and feeding them all this e-content, there's an increased risk of their getting disconnected from the real world. That is what I feel. I mean, like, this is one topic where there's bound to be a massive debate going on. But too much of technology is without doubt overwhelming. And we come across grave issues like social media addiction, there is cyberbullying, there's a steep hike in physical and mental health issues and whatnot. Which is why I truly hope that despite all the potentials, you know, that technology has to offer, we will soon be back to where we truly belong. You know, in our classrooms, where we actually sit across each other, see each other face to face, and have productive instructional sessions that are enhanced by technology probably, but which are not overwhelmed by technology. And let's also hope that we'll soon be back in a world where, you know, e-content and technology massively contributes and adds to the very warm human interactions that define, you know, real teacher-student relationships. And this is the final word that I want to put across today. And technology is best when it brings people together. Matt Mullenweg, thank you so much. Thank you so much for a very patient listening. I think I've taken almost 20-25 minutes, Texas. I'm really sorry for that. Thank you so much.
Anjita, on to Anjita.
Seema teacher, 1 minute. Can I just take 1 minute?
Okay, teacher.
Okay. Velu sir, I couldn't stop expressing my thoughts listening to your homework presentation. Can you listen to me, sir? And Letitia, am I audible?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Velu sir, a homework the presentation, and as usual, it came as a breezy breather. Your style, Velu sir style, coupled with that classy slides and quoting you, it made the entire exercise very adaptable and personalized. And, you know, before our students start sharing their doubts with you, let us tell you that we have, in fact, reserved you for yet another webinar. And the title of the webinar, let me tell you now itself, sir, it will be Scholarly Vibes on Strokes of Spanish Language. That is what you would be delivering for us in the next webinar. And Velu sir, jokes apart, since it is you on the other side, you know, we can have the audacity to title it as an international webinar because our resource person stands the same, only difference from Spain. Okay. So you have already been reserved, and I feel that even. And then one more thing I have to say: in the beginning, you said you are a novice making infant steps into the field of technology. But after seeing and listening to your presentation, if again you dare to repeat that, we would be forced to call it as the biggest lie. Okay, sir? So, I hope our students will have plenty of doubts to clear from your side, or it can also be the other way around. When the presentation is so clear, don't take it as words of formality. I thought rather than typing it on the chat box, I should express myself. So, very happy to see and hear you, sir, and sending your way our regards to all your dear ones back home. Thank you, Velu, sir.
Thank you so much, teacher. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for this informative session. This will definitely be useful to all of us being prospective teachers. I'm sure you must have all taken down the important points during the session. However, do not worry if you haven't. We have Ms. Laiju Bia to reinforce the important points.
Hello, Laiju.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello there. Okay, you can proceed.
Am I?
No, Laiju.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Laiju. Yes, can proceed.
Okay, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, Laiju.
Yes, continue.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session that you have given us. And while you started with the implications of what the student teachers have to go through to prepare themselves for the future educational programs, I think you have done a very thorough, like our ma'am said, homework on what kind of tools that you have to introduce to the student educators. We have come across a lot of new names. And I personally feel that this webinar was a good introduction to so many things that is existing in the IT field. But in order to get more acquainted with all these things, it will be nice if the faculty can arrange more workshop sessions also, because to manage all these technically and to make it effective in the field of teaching, I think workshops should be very helpful. And this introduction about Swayam and Adi and then many facts related to e-learning, then Q-Share, then the availability of PPT presentations, how to use Moodle, SlideShare, so many other things that you were introducing us to were really eye-opener for all of us. And it has been a privilege and honor to listen to you. Thank you so much, and I'll pass on to Anjita.
Thank you, Ms. Laiju. Now I request the convener of the webinar, Ms. Seema Karthikeyan, Assistant Professor in General Education, for giving the vote of thanks.
Sir, before I proceed, your promise for a song, sir?
Oh, yeah, sure. Shall I just, am I echoing?
No, sir, no.
I'm perfectly audible?
Yeah. Sir.
All right. ശ്യാമാംബരം നീളെ മണിമുകിലിനുള്ളിൽ തുടിയുണരും നേരം തിങ്കൾ കലമാനോടുമ്പോൾ ദൂരെ കണ്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ചന്ദ്രകാന്തക്കല്ല് ദൂരെ കണ്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ചന്ദ്രകാന്തക്കല്ല് ശ്യാമാംബരം സായന്തനത്തിൻ്റെ കണ്ണിൽ ശ്രുതിസാഗരം തിളങ്ങി ചാരേ കൺ തുറന്നതോ സുവർണ്ണ താരകം. സായന്തനത്തിൻ്റെ കണ്ണിൽ ശ്രുതിസാഗരം തിളങ്ങി ചാരേ കൺ തുറന്നതോ സുവർണ്ണ താരകം. സ്വർഗവാതിൽ കിളി തേടി തീരാ തേൻമൊഴികൾ നാദം നാദം മൃദുവായി കൊഴിയും നിലവിൽ പോലും മെല്ലെ കേട്ടു കേട്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ഹൃദയമന്ത്രച്ചിന്ത്. മെല്ലെ കേട്ടു കേട്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ഹൃദയമന്ത്രച്ചിന്ത്. ശ്യാമാംബരം ചിത്രാങ്കണത്തിലെ കാവിൽ പൊന്നാളമാടി നിന്നു കാടാറുമാസ പൊരുളിനും നാടാറുമാസമായി. ചിത്രാങ്കണത്തിലെ കാവിൽ പൊന്നാളമാടി നിന്നു കാടാറുമാസ പൊരുളിനും നാടാറുമാസമായി. പുതുമിന്നൽ കൈവള ചാർത്തി ചാത്തി മാദിനികൾ നാദം നാദം സുരഭി മന്ത്രം തെളിയും പോലെ അരികിൽ കേട്ടു കേട്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ഹൃദയമന്ത്രച്ചിന്ത്. അരികിൽ കേട്ടു കേട്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ഹൃദയമന്ത്രച്ചിന്ത്. ശ്യാമാംബരം നീലേ മണിമുകിലിനുള്ളിൽ തുടിയുണരും നേരം തിങ്കൾ കലമാനോടുമ്പോ ദൂരെ കണ്ടു കണ്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ചന്ദ്രകാന്ത കല്ല്. ദൂരെ കണ്ടു കണ്ടാൽ മനമലിയും ചന്ദ്രകാന്ത കല്ല്. ശ്യാമാംബരം. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Like 1 minute, sir. So, sir, you've got a lot of fans, I feel. Appreciating your voice. In the chat box, you can see number of messages. Appreciating your voice. So it is really superb listening to you, as well as the voice is so melodious, as I already informed you in the morning. And also one of the members in the group, one Rincy, has commented that I don't exactly know what exactly she has mentioned, but anyway it is Spanish. Probably thank you or superb. Rincy, what did you mention in that? Rincy, are you there? Hello, Rincy.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it? You conveyed something else in Spanish?
Yes, ma'am. That means daily calendar.
Can you repeat it once again? I didn't hear you.
Daily calendar.
Have you heard?
Yeah,
Daily calendar, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. And also one more thing, sir. Some of them have even asked certain questions. Whether Kahoot and Prezi presentation are available in mobile.
I don't think Kahoot is available on mobile. No. I don't think so. I mean, of course, if you're using the browser, maybe you could use Kahoot on your mobile. That's it. Prezi is again like a presentation that requires a desktop or a laptop. It's always better if you use a desktop. Or I don't think they have an app version as such.
And another one, whether NROER is a free software.
Of course, no. It's not a free software. It is actually a repository that has been, it is a website that is run by the government of India itself, and it is a repository that specifically caters to, this particular intention that the teachers get to share all these resources that have been developed by other teachers from across the country. It is absolutely free.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Teacher, 1 second. I happen to see Jacob Matthew, sir. Sorry, sir. I kandilla sir out irikkunnathu.
I am here. Your talk highly informative.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
With a technological point of view, it is highly informative.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Velayudhan. Thank you, Velu. Okay.
So thank you, Jacob Matthew, sir, for being here. The entire session you were here. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time over here in this webinar.
Thank you.
And for the motivation that you have given so far, for all the tasks that we have been doing so far.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Seema teacher.
Yes, teacher, am I audible?
Yeah, yes, teacher.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Most valuable guest speaker, Dr. Velayudhan Nair, sir. Secretary, Mathoma Church Education Society, Dr. Rajan Varghese. Most respected principal, Dr. Anila Chako. My dear colleagues and dear student friends. I deem it a great privilege and honor to propose vote of thanks for today's webinar on Techno dexterity for e-content generation. Let me first of all start by giving glory to Almighty God for making today's session a resounding success. We are happy to mention our obligation to the guest speaker, Dr. Velayudhan Nair sir, for his captivating presentation. You shared wonderful tools and platforms which most of us were not aware, sir, and that was a good takeaway of the session. You have effortlessly reached out to us covering the vast area of e-content generation, and the goals taken up were justified with your lucid explanation. Also, you had restored the missing human element which worried our secretary by your irresistible melody. Thank you, sir, for making the past few moments perfectly perfect. We at St. Thomas Training College are grateful to Mathoma Church Education Society and especially to Dr. Rajan Varghese sir for his kindness and continuous support. I'd also like to thank Dr. Jacob Matthew sir. He has also joined the session for his sustainable support. A warm thanks goes to our principal, Dr. Anila Chako, for entrusting me to coordinate this webinar and also for extending a perfect partnership in taking the college forward from strength to strength even during this pandemic period. I have been blessed with the most amazing colleagues, both teaching and non-teaching. Anila teacher, Nishi teacher, Vidya teacher, Asha teacher, Helen teacher, Anila teacher, then Elena ma'am and Elizabeth ma'am, who gives continuous support and encouragement and guidance. The role you play in my life is monumental. Thank you for helping me wholeheartedly. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the student coordinators, Jyoti, Robbins, Anjita, Gayatri, Aishwarya, Anjana, Laiju and Sruthi. The time and effort invented in by you have been mind-boggling. You were our most technologically sound team members by far. Thank you for everything you did. Finally, I wish to extend my wholehearted gratitude to our student friends who always line up to our expectation even during this lockdown period. Wishing and hoping for healthy and happy days ahead, St. Thomas Training College is indeed happy to have enjoyed a fruitful day with you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.